Hey everybody, it's Dale Jr. back again for another episode of the Dale Jr. Download. This is the Ally Guest segment today, and we have a special one for you. Not a NASCAR guest. These guys are from the NFL and also from the podcast Bussin With The Boys. Taylor Lewan and Will Compton are coming into the studio. Been friends with Will for a while, and I'm excited to be able to get them here today and talk about what they've been up to. Let's get this started. The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media. So we're back in the Bojangles studio today, and while we're talking Bojangles, don't forget now until June 9th, sausage Bowberry biscuit for free. If you order on the website, bojangles.com, or if you go and order on the app at participating stores, you will get the sausage Bowberry biscuit for free. Use the promo code Dale Jr., D-A-L-E-J-R, and get that Bowberry biscuit. All right, so I want to thank Ally for bringing this guest segment to us every single week. Ally has been a great supporter of everything we do here at Dirty Mo Media. And I've been wanting to, every once in a while change it up and not have a NASCAR guest. And who do you bring in? There's all kinds of people out there in other parts of entertainment and sports to bring to the table. And we've got a great opportunity to talk to Will Compton today, Taylor Lewan. Both of these guys played football in the NFL, and then they also joined up to start a podcast called Bussin With The Boys. If it's not the most, it's one of the most popular sports podcasts, especially by athletes in sports today. And so, I want to talk to them about how they've built that brand and what their plan is and vision is for that. It's actually really unique. They started from nothing, really, and created a very profitable business. And so also want to touch on their careers, how they got started. I know a little bit about their NFL careers, and obviously that's easy to go find, but may touch on their their beginnings in high school and so forth, and how they learned they would become NFL players and stars. So it's going to be a lot of fun. They're in the lobby waiting all the way from Nashville. They came here today to talk to us, so let's bring them in the room, get started. Whose Sundrop hat is that? Is that mine?
This is yours. Yeah, they gave us.
Yeah, you guys hooked us up.
Okay, there you go.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. So,
is there coffee?
You want coffee?
Would love some.
Is there any coffee?
Is there? Just get a little caffeinated.
Yeah. Dale, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This establishment you have here, incredible.
Yeah.
We walked out. Everybody here went. They planned out the trip to come and see you. That's sitting outside your facility right now.
Yeah.
They went. They hit a Buc-ee's. They had a nice morning there, and they came right here. This is their spot.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, man. Y'all going to take a look around after we get done here, so you can see the shop and all the cars.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man. This is where we are, man. This is where we've been forever.
This is awesome.
Yeah. There's you some coffee. I don't know how you like it.
Thank you. Yes.
Is that your coffee?
This is mine. Yeah.
I was wondering. It was like this weird new coffee.
Yeah. Just filled it up halfway.
Yeah.
What kind of operation you running here?
That's
just
as good
a metaphor
as we got,
for life.
So Will and Taylor are here from Bussin With The Boys, and I've been on your show twice now. I think I did one call in on Zoom back in the day when we were all Zooming and everything.
Yeah.
And then I came to the bus in Nashville, and I had a blast. You guys have created something really special, and so I'm thankful to be able to have you guys come over here and check us out and be on our show. Why are you in Charlotte? What are you doing here?
We're here for you.
Yeah.
What else are you doing here?
Nothing.
We're going home. We're going home today.
Yeah. We flew in last night, landed about 10 o'clock, drove to our hotel, which is like 10 minutes away, slept, and we're here for the Dale Jr.
All right, pressure zone. Pressure zone. So I've been seeing y'all, though. Y'all been touring around. Y'all were at Atlanta a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So y'all take your show away from the bus from time to time,
mm-hmm.
right? And we've got, you've got all kinds of training camps and OTAs and rookie camps and all kinds of shit firing off in the NFL. And so you guys take opportunity to drop in on some of the organizations and do some certain interviews. So how do y'all, decide where you're going, when you're going to do something? Who's helping y'all build that?
Nobody.
me and Will kind of sit there and we go, where would be a cool place to go?
Really?
And then we pick a couple places. Like this year, Oregon was a big one we wanted to travel to. Will ended up going to that. Yeah. And so we do a fall tour where you go to about 5 or 6 stops. And so, and then we'll go catch a game, do a vlog, those types of things, not really interview based. And then in the springtime, we'll pick mostly colleges. And this year we actually ended up doing 2 NFL teams, and we'll just kind of go and check out their, their spring camp stuff going on, go check out what that city has to offer, do a couple interviews and boogie out of there. Everything we do, we try to do within a 24-hour time span.
And I know Will's dad, and you're like, from what I can tell, I'm going to dive into your career here in a minute, your careers. From what I can tell.
Taylor's a father of 2.
I know.
Okay.
But I wanted to say that from what I could tell, you're dadding, and you're also like 100% full on Bussin With The Boys and your own personal content. Would that be a good synopsis of who you are every day, right?
Bussin With The Boys.
Taylor.
Allude to the football career a little bit, but dad life, yes.
Taylor is not quite as transparent to me. Like, what is your life like? What are you doing? I know you're right on the tail end. You're right on the tail end of your career, right?
Yeah, we could put a bow on it. I just haven't signed papers.
Exactly.
255 pounds, need to be 310 to play my position. Right. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
Taylor's genetic makeup, he can easily put the weight back on. He can stay there, and we think about maybe some tight end. Yeah. Some 23 personnel.
I firmly believe I would be the best blocking tight end in the NFL today. But my life,
what are you spending your time doing?
Dude, pretty much for the most part, what Will does. I mean, I'm not as involved in social media as Will is. Will does a great job at that. But my main focus is growing Bussin', getting the guests we want to get, traveling, how to stand up new verticals with Will. And then for me, it's go home. I got 2 daughters that are 6 and 3. And with my wife is more private. She likes to kind of keep the personal life personal. So she's always on me, hey, don't be posting about the kids, don't be this. Because there are times I want to. But, we've had a couple of things. I'm sure you've had a couple of people on Instagram or whatever say things about your kids, dude. And you just don't want those types of things. So we kind of just stay away from that. And I do keep a little more cards to my chest when it comes to those. But it's really Bussin', family, and I don't really know if I have any hobbies right now.
Come on now. Hey. Blackjack.
Oh, yeah. And
Blackjack. And I'll speak for Taylor because he's being a little modest. He also has some ambition with, he looks incredible. But being in front of the camera, he got to do a really cool thing. We can't talk about it.
Yeah,
we can't talk about exactly what it is. But he got to do something really cool where he went to Mexico for 30 days and filmed something. But I feel like you have some aspirations in that area as well.
I've always loved like the entertainment game, and even playing football. There was always with offensive linemen, there was like you better be seen, not heard. And I just chose not to live that way, and it's worked out in a lot of ways where you get out in front of the media and these older vets, these 10-year vets, like, what are you speaking for? Because usually it's a fine. If the older vets in the NFL see you talking to the camera, automatic $100 right there.
What?
Yeah, all right away.
Depending on the fine system, switch from team to team. But
right.
Wait a minute, sorry.
That's pretty universal.
Any kind of conversation? Like any kind of media?
There's a set of unspoken rules that the offensive linemen will go over in OTAs after the draft when the rookies first get in. Can't talk to the media. There's sexy fines. There's ugly fines. There's when you see the owner, if hey, good to see you. How are you? Big hug. That's $1,000 right there.
Oh, no.
That's what it is. And so it goes into this pot. And at the end of the year, we do like an O-line trip, whether it's Vegas, guys go to Miami or whatever like that. But it's all for the cause of the boys at the end of the whole entire trip. So, my rookie year, I was just talking to the media a whole bunch. I enjoyed it personally. Yeah. And so I really like the entertainment aspect. And I don't know if I can act or not act. I like to just see if I can do it. Yeah. And just kind of, you play a sport for so long, eventually that's going to end. And it's obviously over for Will and I. And it's like, what other lives can you live? Yeah. So there's other things I'm into besides that. Love airplanes. Obsessed with airplanes.
You started getting your...
You were going to get your pilot's license?
Yeah, I did about 20 hours. Yeah. And then then I got a knee, and then football became a thing. Had another kid. And so I'm the guy that's like, I'm going to get it someday. Yeah. But there's a lot of things I want to do. It's just kind of figuring out that, but making sure to take care of the main thing, which is Bussin' right now.
You're in this really cool place where you were playing football, and Wills did this too, I know, but like you had everything was football. It couldn't be any other way. And any outside of like your family and other priorities, man, you did everything you could to be great at football. And now you have this it's like this, big bull being let out to pasture, man. You're like, what
else is there? Yeah,
it's like a blank slate, right? And you get this opportunity to really kind of do all these things that you never had the chance to do, or really put all the time into that you wanted to put into, like flying and so forth. Yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, for you for the next several several years to see what you end up landing on, right? Really, aside from Bussin, I know you guys want to create that and continue to grow that. I want to talk about, this is going to be interesting trying to interview both of you at the same time, but yeah, I mean, because I want to learn about both of your careers.
You got to watch a little bit of mine.
Yeah, I did. But I want to go back to your high school days. So,
perfect.
For example, we see you guys play on Sunday, and we just assume, man, that you were that all your life. But you played wide receiver in high school.
All-state. He was an all-state wide receiver,
too. Did you come across second team all-state?
Like Will Compton was Missouri for a little bit.
Yeah. I was coming out, like, in the recruiting database, I was listed as an athlete. So,
hey.
And I'm glad JP's here. We love joking around about our old days.
But so being listed as an athlete, that's the coolest thing you can get on a scout or a rivals. It says athlete, not just O-line. Right. Like, you are the man. That's cool.
Yeah, my very first offer was wide receiver, Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And I also had, by the end of it, it was like Arkansas had called talking about Peyton Hillis' spot, like Peyton Hillis' position. But I was pretty set that I was probably going to be a linebacker.
Really?
Yeah.
You get to have influence
your
over
skin
that.
tone?
Yeah, I mean, look, your boy in middle school, I share the high jump record. I hold the record for high jump. I could jump 5'11" as an 8th grader. And I started to go, when I go to high school and continue my track career, if you will, I couldn't hit 6 foot as a freshman. So you start to put on the mass to where you start to have a little bit of self-awareness. To where it's like, yeah, I can do these things, whether it's offensively or whatnot. But hand size, length, you know what I mean? Like being a receiver, clearly it wouldn't have worked out.
I don't believe that for a second. Brother, you remember doing those agility drills. Yeah. You're pretty good at those. You're pretty at changing direction. You could have played with Mike Campanaro.
Yeah, maybe.
At Wake Forest.
Maybe. But I always enjoyed defense, and when I got recruited mostly for defense, it's kind of like, you're kind of following those signs of I'm going to be a defensive player.
And so, Taylor, for you, did you have other positions that you like to play?
Dude, I was in like 8th grade time, I was kind of like done with sports. I played like every sport between 5 and about 12, and then I was like kind of anti-sports, anti-jock for a little bit. Got in a little bit of trouble.
What the hell?
And my dad's like, listen, you got all this aggression, you're going to go play football. So I ended up playing nose tackle for my freshman year. We go 8-0. Boys go 8-0. I was ineligible for the last game because my grades weren't too great. The next year, we go 15-0, win a state championship. And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, football is the coolest. I'm officially bought back into sports. But I'm 6'6", real lanky, and I'm playing nose tackle. Like, I'm so out of position, it's crazy. And so my junior year, we're playing this school called Chaparral High School. They're down in Scottsdale, Arizona. Real nice school. And they beat the brakes off of us. But when I played Pop Warner, one of my coach there, his son went to Chaparral, and he came over to my dad, and he's like, hey, your son, he's kind of built like a left tackle. Like, maybe he could come down here. There's this kid named Craig Rowe. He's got 20 offers. He's an All-American as a junior. Maybe he would want to come to Scottsdale and get a little more exposure. So I go there.
Yeah.
And I end up playing 2 football games. And I kind of just put them out there, like send them the little DVDs, send them out. And 3 weeks later, I had over 20 offers, and I became an All-American off those 2 games. And I got my first offer.
You were Under Armour, right?
Under Armour. I was offered by Utah State, and I didn't even know. Like, the Utah State coach comes up to me, and he's like, hey, I'd love to have you. And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be awesome. And then my coach comes up, he's like, hey, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, nice guy. He's like, they just offered you a scholarship. And I told him right there, I was like, dude, I'm going to the NFL. He's like, well, hold on. Your grades are terrible. We need to make sure you're eligible. And I was like, dude, I'm going to the NFL. This is the coolest thing ever. And so it was an insane ascension that out of nowhere. I was going from, in my head, I'm like, you're doing construction. Yeah. Manual labor is in your future, no question about it. And then all of a sudden I get offered, and I'm like, holy, there's a whole nother opportunity out there that I had no idea was even possible.
What does it mean when you transfer from one high school to the other, and what does that mean for your family? Like, how far away was the distance? It
was only like probably a 30, 45-minute drive.
So it was still
nothing.
It didn't change anything like for you or your family. You just went to a different school.
No, the family part wasn't the big issue for me. It was leaving my friends. I had these boys, man. We called each other the Sexy Six or the Dirty Half Dozen. There were 6 of us, and we little rode together everywhere, always in a pickup truck. Anthony Stevens riding in his car, and we all played football, and that was like our thing. Fridays, we go to Anthony's house. We go play the game, and so Cactus Shadows, the first school I was at, was going on spring break. Chaparral High School was going off of spring break. So I didn't get the spring break. I just did that weekend and then went right into the school. And the hardest thing for me was telling my boys that I'm going to go to this other school, who were, by the way, Chaparral's going to play Cactus Shadows next year.
Oh, no.
And I was heartbroken about it. I got kicked out of the Sexy Six. They kicked me out. And that was the hardest thing for me. For my family, my dad, he was kind of renting a place. And so he went and got an apartment that was, less than a 1/10 of a mile away from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the district, and then I was just in the next day.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't, the family part wasn't difficult. It was leaving the boys, man. That was the hardest thing for me.
And 2 games is all it took to convince college programs to give you
it was
offers.
It was a weird time because I was so lanky and tall. And then right as I'm ending my junior, going to my senior, like I just kind of found my body as far as like proprioception and be able to I was all of a sudden could run, all of a sudden could jump, all of a sudden
protein shake.
I would wake up at 3 a.m. because I was always a light guy. I would wake up at 3 a.m, have a protein shake and go back to sleep. Always constantly trying to gain weight, and put those 2 games out, and out of nowhere, like offer after offer after offer, like just came in, and the schools that wanted to offer me looked at my grades, were like no shot. Like Jim Harbaugh, who is now at the Chargers, he came to my school to meet with Craig Rowe, who had a 4.0.
And Harbaugh's at Stanford at the time.
He's at Stanford at the time. And he's like, we'd love to have you. And they looked at my transcript. He goes, there's no shot. You can get into Stanford. And he's like, appreciate you. Shook my hand, and he walked out the door. But it was incredible, man. It was a crazy, crazy situation.
And so you get an offer from Michigan?
Got offered from Michigan.
And they liked your grades?
It's Michigan, similar to Nebraska.
Top 15 public school in the world.
Yeah.
Here's how I really think Michigan offered me. And Michigan has this tradition of being such a great school. At the time, they were kind of like Lloyd Carr was leaving and Rich Rodriguez just came in, and it was kind of, Michigan was headed towards the down years, when I played there. I would tell everybody that me and Craig were best friends. And Craig, they loved Craig. And so they probably thought to themselves, if we get Taylor, we could probably get Craig as well, because Craig was nasty in high school. Like, he was the only kid that played with technique. Like, he was unbelievable. And so I would play that up to them quite a bit, and they ended up offering. And I went for a visit, and I only took 2 visits. I ended up going to Michigan. This guy named Jake Long in 2008 was the number 1 overall pick. He wore number 77. That's why I wore 77. I was just thinking to myself, I'm trying to get to the NFL. They put out offensive linemen. This is where I need to go.
Yeah.
And so I got there, shook Rich Rodriguez's hand, and said, I'm committing. I don't know what I have to do, but I'm committing.
I'm yours.
What was your experience like?
Getting recruited?
Yeah.
So I initially, I would get offered from the majority of probably Big 12. I had some Big 10. The SEC, like Arkansas and Notre Dame, were very late. I grew up wanting to go to Notre Dame. Went to Catholic school until 4th grade. Then I went to public school. But growing up until 4th grade, our principal would always go to a Notre Dame game every year. And each year there were only 6 kids in our class between grades 4 through 6. There was 4 4th graders, 1 5th grader, and 1 6th grader in our class. So she would bring back memorabilia for us since we were such a small class. So I just kind of grew up wanting to go to Notre Dame. So I'll go to the summer camps at Notre Dame trying to get offered. And I remember I ran really well. It was like my sophomore year, junior year, and a Princeton coach was like, hey, you got a lot of eyes on you. You ran a really good 40 time. I think it was like a 4.51 on that day when Charlie Weiss was the head coach. And then I was just wanting to go to football camps. Like, I'm wanting to go to my favorite teams' football camps. Those are 3-4 day camp. You stay in the dorms. You're getting to know different people and everything else. And a Princeton coach who was like in charge of our group was like, hey, you got quite a bit of eyes on you. Like, keep it up. The linebacker coach kind of pulled me aside. There's a high school coach from Michigan, because at all these camps, they bring in high school coaches locally to help run the camp. And there's this one cat out of Michigan, and he was telling me kind of some similar stuff. So from that moment, I was like, oh, man, like, I could probably get recruited and play Division I college football, which is what I always wanted to do and always felt like I could. Being in Bonne Terre, Missouri, there's not a lot of – in that area, there's not a lot of D1. There's not a lot of recruiting that goes on. Like, my mom and I and our head coach at the time in high school – would put together the VHS tapes. My mom would send them off, with our letters, the things that you would learn about what to do when you're trying to send your tape off and resume off to schools and everything else. Like your height, weight, your grades, all this different stuff.
Basic stuff.
Yeah. All the basic stuff. And then from there, I went to a Nike camp going into my senior year. And I won, and I was an MVP. I was the linebacker MVP in that Nike camp. And from
how
there,
do you win the? How do you?
You go through drills, like you do all the testing. You go through drills. You're doing one-on-ones. You're doing a lot of competitive stuff with whoever flocks to these camps. They hold all these Nike camps around the country, and I had won MVP of that camp, not of the position group of linebacker. And from that day, teams just started texting me. They started getting all your information because a lot of coaches are there, and so I started to get recruited. Rob Iannello from Notre Dame. I will always remember Rob because I wanted Notre Dame to offer me so badly, and I was basically like their rebound guy. Like if guys didn't commit, ultimately they offered me to go to Notre Dame, but they also offered me as a fullback. They're like, you can start there. Their class was loaded at linebacker, and so that kind of turned me off of Notre Dame. But Nebraska, Michigan State.
Who are the people? I mean, what is that guy's position at Notre Dame?
Which guy?
At the time, the guy you mentioned.
Rob Iannello, he's just my recruiter. He was the wide receivers coach, and he kind of oversaw the Midwest, like that area.
Gotcha.
He's kind of like that regional recruiter. And so he would always kind of keep me on the line with staying patient and everything else. But during that time, Nebraska offers, Mizzou, Illinois. I say those three because those are the three I was kind of down to going to. That year was when Chase Daniels, Jeremy Maclin, they were on fire with Mizzou in the Big 12. Illinois just got done. They lost in the Rose Bowl to USC, but they had Juice Williams, Rashard Mendenhall, Jay Lehman was an All-American linebacker. So those schools were within 3.5 hours of where I grew up. So I had in-state pressure to go to Mizzou. I also really liked Illinois because they recruited me really hard. And I liked Nebraska at the time. Like Bill Callahan was the head coach there. They had a bad year, I think 5-7, then he got fired. But throughout that year, I committed to Bill Callahan and the Nebraska staff. But as the year unfolded, Mizzou's on top, Illinois was on top, Nebraska was on the downside. Bill Callahan's getting fired. My recruitment's basically opened up without saying hey, I'm decommitting from Nebraska. And then toward the end of around December, November, whenever Callahan got fired from Nebraska, Tom Osborne becomes the AD. Tom Osborne, legend.
Yeah.
And he flies to visit me at my high school. And I wasn't as familiar with Tom Osborne as all the, my dad and all the older heads were. There were teachers running down the hallway to get his autograph after I met with him in the high school office. Crazy.
That's so awesome.
And he didn't tell me who he was going to hire, but he was talking about how they wanted I was a priority to stay committed. I think you're really going to like who we bring in. Mm-hmm. Then eventually Bo Pelini gets hired. The LSU, they had the number one defense nationally for 2 years running. LSU was winning national titles at that time. Bo gets hired, and they basically a full court press, recruiting me, and it was awesome. And I remember going into my whole commitment week. Mizzou had just got done visiting my mom at her school. I was riding back with my boy Logan, my best friend Logan, and I was like, yo, I think. I was torn between Illinois and Mizzou. I wasn't going to go to Nebraska. My mom cried when I said I wasn't going to go to Nebraska because Bo had took her to church, had done all the things on my official visit. And Bo called me on that drive home that day after visiting with Mizzou, and he was like, hey, can I do one more thing? Can you do me one more favor before you make your decision? At that point, I was kind of tired of recruiting. I was like, yeah, sure. What is it? And he was like, I want to fly my defensive staff in to watch the championship weekend with you, NFC championship, AFC championship games. I want to fly them in, and I want them to spend the Sunday watching games with you. And I was kind of oh, man, how did I walk myself into another home visit, basically?
Shit, yeah.
And the staff flies in. We have an incredible time that day at the house during the championship weekend. And they walked out the door, and I was like, those are the guys I want to play for.
What was this?
Eckler had a tattoo, a temporary 3-month tattoo that looked real with my name.
Henna.
Yeah, with my name, Nebraska black shirts. He's like, this is how committed we are to you. And it was just a great time. They walked out, and I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. This is the staff I want to play for. So I chose Nebraska based on the staff. They have incredible facilities. And fortunately, Bo and that staff was there pretty much. Bo was there for all 5 of my years, but that's how I committed to. That's how I ended up at Nebraska.
Yeah. Did you? I probably now it doesn't matter. And your loyalty to those, your loyalty to Nebraska and Michigan is as strong as it can be. But is there points in the first year or two that you were thinking maybe made the wrong choice, or was it? Yeah.
Really, you thought that with Michigan?
Dude, I actually tried to decommit from Michigan before, like a couple weeks before I went, but I already signed the LOI
because it was so far away.
So far away, you know how young love is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Situation. There was this girl that was going to U of A, and I was like, I had an offer from you. I'll just go there.
Yeah.
I'll just go to Tucson, Arizona, of all places. So I tried to decommit. I talked to my head coach. He's like, listen, you decommit, you have to sit out for a year. They start essentially telling me, listen, dummy, like, put it away for a second. You're gonna be all right.
Think with the head on your shoulders.
Right.
Not
And then
the
when I got to Michigan, I mean, the first snowfall was like the real first time I've really seen snow. And I remember walking to class. I was going to Angel Hall, and I'm getting pelted in the face with snow, and it's like melting on my face. I'm like, I'm wearing a pair of Vans, some black jeans, and a zip-up hoodie. And I thought,
basically
winter,
what you're in now.
Basically what I'm in now, except for I'm not wearing a hoodie. And I'm like, all right, I got to get the hell out of here. I'm actually so glad that the NIL and the transfer portal was, because I would have left.
You wouldn't have been. Yeah, you would have.
Yeah, because at the time I was like, this sucks. Like, the weather's terrible. I'm so used to being in Arizona, and you take it for granted in Arizona because there's like 5 days of the year that rains. Right. And it's like 5 days that's cloudy. Yeah. And so I get there, and it's like the weather's all over the place. I'm in a place I don't know. Midwest is so much different than the Southwest. I was just kind of like a massive culture shock for me. So that first semester, and my offensive line coach, Greg Fry, he was one of those coaches that when you're on the field, it's like, I want to kill this man. Like, everything he said to you was so over the top and horrible. And then once you get off the field, he's like dapping you up and giving you some love. It was such it was an abusive relationship in my head. I was getting gaslight 24/7. And so I was like, I got to get out of here. And then luckily, you put a little weight on, you start to play, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, coaches are in your ear a little bit.
Yeah, I'm bleeding blue.
I never, like, times where it'd be hard, you just assuming, like, yo, we're playing, this is Division I college football. It's supposed to be, like, all this way, this stuff. Like, there was just a really good staff there. There's a group of guys. Our freshman class was a lot of fun to be around. Dorm life kind of sucks at times, but you're just why does
I never went to college.
Dude, dorm life I disagree. I think dorm life is the best, but go ahead.
I mean, you're in the very first, the Selleck dorms that we were in, very beaten down, very old, and you're just like, you're bunking up, you're in the small room, there's bunk beds, you're sharing space with somebody. I usually don't, not that I don't do well, but internally I built up a resentment with whoever I'm usually living with, just because I like my own space. I like my own time.
You're a miserable roommate.
Yeah.
Are you an asshole?
No, I'm not an asshole. I just, in my brain, I'm thinking, this guy doesn't know how I'm starting. Yeah,
sounds
it doesn't.
Like you might be.
Like I would be driving us to workouts. I would hear him chew and just the crackling that go on. I'd be like, God. Sometimes he'd have some bad morning breath to where it fills up the car.
Yeah. Did you say anything?
No.
Dude,
no. Because there'd be times where I know he does, and then I still smell it. I'm like, oh, this must just be like maybe a genetic thing. Who knows?
Tough thing to
maybe a genetic thing.
It's tough to bring that up.
But when you're in that small space, it's just you love it because you're playing video games with guys down the hall. Like, you're doing all the stuff that freshmen do. But there's times where you're like, you're just assuming like this is what it's supposed to be like. Like, even if I'm a little scared from being away from home right now. I
remember I never went to college, but I went to military school, which was, we lived there, and holy dude, the first 2 weeks was miserable. Like, just being out of that comfort cycle of your own house, your own bedroom, and now you're in this brick building with nothing on the walls, and it's you.
You're military school. You're probably in a little room, a little dorm room.
Yeah, it was a dorm.
Yeah.
You're sharing it with this guy. You got nothing but a couple beds and hanging clothes, and it sucked.
I thought the dorms were the best. Because I always wanted to be around my boys, wanted to hang out, and always be around friends. I was very different from Will. I was actually the bad roommate. Will's the person he resents. Will and I were roommates. He'd be like, "Get me the hell away from this guy." I would always snore so loud. My roommate would just throw socks at me, his dirty socks, until I'd wake up and get mad at him for waking me up and then go back to sleep and snore again. But I stayed in West Quad, and West Quad was across the street from South Quad. And every snowfall, every year is tradition. Like, people pull the fire alarms, and you have a snowball fight. Yeah. But South Quad always had the baseball players. And so you're having a good time trying to, like, tease a girl, throw a little ball at her or something like that, and then all of a sudden one rips by your face, and you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, I might get taken down.
Yeah.
But I thought the dorms were awesome. You had to do 1 year. Well, I don't know if it was like this in Nebraska, but you had to do one year, and then you get like a stipend, where you get like $1,200
if you had the grades, you could go off campus.
And I always thought, I was excited to be in a house But as soon as I got to the house, I was like, the dorm was so much easier. You had food, you had the access. There's people around all the time, and then all of a sudden I have to go get my own food.
Yeah,
I have to walk over, and I stayed off campus my first year. It was miserable. I loved the dorms though. I thought that was my favorite part. Some
interesting times in the dorms.
What about fraternities?
Dude, frats didn't really mess with the football team, so no experience with fraternities in Nebraska. There was never any collab. There was never any intermingling with the football team and fraternities. It wasn't like I outwardly hated the frats or anything like that, but you just never heard of guys hanging out at fraternities.
Yeah, it was hot and cold with the fraternities. Like Michigan has a great Greek life, but you'd walk up, you knock on the door, you're essentially trying to invite yourself into their parties, and so you kind of open the door and hope to God they recognize you. Like, oh, football, you come on in.
Yeah.
But it was always that awkward, like knock on the door and they'll kind of just stare at you for a little bit. And they're essentially sizing you up to if they're going to allow you in or not.
Right.
And so there was one that was like kind of near West Quad we would always go to. We got in tight with them. One of my hall mates, he was in the frat. So we really enjoyed going over there because, I mean, that first year of college, there's no rules. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. We would always come in. We would get nice sauced up. We'd take the aux cord, we plug it in, play the Blink-182s and the older 2000s punk music, and just assume that everybody loved it. And that's when EDM was getting big. Everyone was like, turn to this. We're like, we'll get you in a second.
Yeah.
But I always would play like the Good Charlottes and the Blink-182s, and we thought we had the best time with that.
I feel like it was mainly that Richie Incognito story that kind of separated
in Nebraska
football and fraternities.
Yeah,
it was just kind of a thing. Like, it was just kind of like, hey, don't get into trouble, don't go to the frat. So Richie Incognito,
legend.
This is a fun story. Legend. There's a walk-on, Rigoni. I want to say he got jumped or something happened where the fraternity guy like jumped him or whatever it was, and they had a team meeting the next day, and basically the coaches were like, take care of your own, like giving the speech, yada yada yada. Richie took that personally. Richie.
Now, hold on. Do you know who Richie Incognito is? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good.
Richie goes to Rigoni and was like, hey, get in the truck. I want you to show me where these guys are. And Rigoni and Richie aren't like boys or nothing.
Yeah.
Like Rigoni, if I can recall correctly, was kind of like nervous, like Richie, being like, hey, come with me. And they're driving down the Greek House Road, whatever. And Rigoni points at the house where the guys are, or what had happened. And Richie basically gets out of the truck. He's like, come with me. And they knock on the door, and the minute it opens, Richie kicks the door in, beats the shit out of the first guy. And then guys who are in the house, he just goes after him, just starts beating the shit out of everybody. And ultimately, talking to Bo about it, because Bo was on that staff, not as a head coach, but a position coach. Later, Bo was like, yo, the next day when they came in, it's like, we knew we gave the speech, but we didn't know it was going to be taken to lengths like that. Like, hey, Richie, like maybe tone it down. Like, let's kind of maybe stay away from those team meetings. But he beat the hell out of everybody in the fraternity.
That got him kicked out, right? Because of that
I don't
fight?
know if that got him kicked out. He did other things. Like, Richie did a few things apparently that got him kicked out, and then he ended up going, I think, to Oregon.
Which is wild. The thought of Richie in Oregon.
Yeah. And then he just had an incredibly long career in the NFL. But heaviest hands that I ever felt.
He is one of those human beings where you just hand him weights and he just lifts them with ease. I would train with him in Arizona at Exos, and it would be like 150-pound dumbbells, and he would just kind of look at you, stare at you, and just pump the weights. No problem at all. Yeah. Just like the strongest, fast twitch. Like,
did he play 15?
15. Like, he was out of college for 15 years, but he had the year in Miami that he missed the next year, and then there was another thing that he missed because of that. But a guy that, when his head was in a good space, took care of his body, was a great leader, good dude, like one of the human beings you want in your corner. Mm-hmm. He was awesome. Yeah. It's just when things got a little sideways.
Yeah, but what a tale.
What a war daddy.
Yeah, what a war tale.
My wedding.
Yeah.
So the Dale Jr. Download is brought to you by Viator. Dalton, I just used Viator. I was on a trip in Vienna. My dad and I were, and we were looking for something to do, in the city, and we went on Viator.com, found a walking tour, and man, it was the best. I feel like I have no idea what that trip would have been like without that. I feel like we got so much done.
That's cool, man. Yeah, Viator is a tool you can use to plan and book travel experiences around the world. The Viator app and website make it easy to explore 300,000 plus travel experiences so you can discover what's out there, no matter where you're traveling or what you're interested in.
Yeah, and you can enjoy real traveler reviews to get insider information from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. Free cancellation, which helps you plan for the unexpected. That's always nice. Plus, Viator offers 24/7 customer service, so you'll know you'll get support at any hour if things do not go as planned. I mean, that is perfect.
That's
so
very nice.
Make sure you download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find the perfect travel experience for you. Do more with Viator.
I want to ask y'all about the landscape of college today versus when you guys were going, and now the players are, you can transfer and you're getting paid to play in a sense, and the college EA Sports games coming back, and everybody's all excited about that.
Fired
I know
up
I
about
am.
that.
Yeah, me too. So, I guess while that's going on, you guys came up in a different time, in a more traditional time. What was your instant reaction to the big changes that have happened in college sports?
I think it's hard because I'll speak for myself, like not being in that time. I think my first reaction is thinking that these kids are soft. And then over time, like you start to, be fluid with the thinking in it. It's like, yeah, I mean, I remember when players wanted to kind of unionize when we were in school because, you make all these schools make so much money off of college football and the players aren't necessarily benefiting. And then when you have the generation before us, it's always the same thing, right? Like, oh, you guys have no clue. One day it'll be like the NFLPA, we're going to be telling those players like, oh, you guys have no clue how good you have it. And we had it really good. I think it's just one of those things to where it's part of the game now.
But it's still relatively new.
It is.
Right?
It's still the Wild West.
It is. It's crazy.
I think it's tough and listen, I hate being on the side of the schools. I don't hate it, but I also hate it because capitalism, you want guys to be able to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
They feel they're doing what's best for them and their family in that time and in that moment. Fair. I think it's tough now for colleges because you're not necessarily like in the NFL. You have contracts, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, whatever. You're locked into that contract unless something happens, unless you get traded, unless you get cut. And in college, basically, this is free agency daily now.
Yeah.
Like different periods of time throughout the year where you can enter the portal. So I think it puts the teams in a tough spot. I think it's hard to navigate building culture because times where you need it to be hard, it's like, hey, I know this sucks, but you got to trust me. Yeah. Like this is going to be hard for several months. Yeah. You're going to feel down. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to feel like, oh, I want to transfer. I want to go here. I want to go there. But you stick to the process, like you'll come out to the other side. Like I'm more into that mentality, but also there are better situations. Like we got to sit down and interview Dylan Gabriel, who's transferred how many times, JP? 4 times? Like 4 times, and kind of get his perspective on transferring and entering the portal. And we interviewed a couple kids in the spring tour like that. And you kind of come out of it like you can understand why it happens. And if you play well, maybe you're at a smaller school and you can get set up for a better position at a better school or a better, you just get into a better situation. And that's just the game that is now. Yeah. So mine, it's like mixed. I go all over the place.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both. I think one of the cons of paying players now is you're creating status in the locker room, which is to me is a bummer because when we were in college, it was like we're all balling on a budget. We're all trying to do the best we possibly can. Some guys are getting Pell Grant, some guys are not. But at the end of the day, we all kind of live on the same line of like we got to pay our rent and then pray to God there's less month at the end of the money. You just kind of want to make sure you can make it to the next paycheck. And there's always like a level of community in that sense. I think it's a good thing from the sense that you're giving guys money now. And how many stories do we hear that 30 for 30 broke where guys go, they get money, they get swindled by somebody or they spend all of it. This is just more time for them to learn how to handle and manage their money. I think the things that need to happen in college is there needs to be a set of rules because it is the Wild West where you can kind of transfer once in the spring or after the season. There's all these times you can just go. And if you're going to sign NIL deals, there should be some sort of contract related with it. Like, we're going to pay you a 7-figure deal. You have to be at this college for the next 24 months. So you're committed for those 2 years you have to be there. Because there are times, like I referenced my first semester at Michigan. When it started to snow, I was like, get me the hell out of here. And that's just snow. I just didn't like the snow. And guys will take the easy road out unless you're kind of built to go through the suck and understand that 6 a.m.s happen and the punishments happen. Yeah, you have to weather the storm. You can be the buffalo or the cow when it comes to the storm. So there's goods and bads. I think as long as it keeps like evolving, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
But right now where it stands, it's so great. You could pick any side of the fence you want.
And it's becoming transactional. It's like, I was talking to one coach, and at the end of the year when you do the end of the year like player reviews, and you're as when we'd sit there, you're figuring out like, what does coach think? How can I get better? What areas do they think I'm weak in? Where do I need to lean toward? And you kind of have it trying to learn and put together a plan for the offseason. Now I was on the phone with one coach, and he said that all the players basically come in and essentially name a price or they're going to hit the portal type of mentality. Maybe not as cold, but ultimately the theme of it all is like, hey, here's a price or I'm going to be entering the portal. Mm-hmm. So it feels a lot more transactional, which I think it's just going to take time to adjust to it. But ultimately, like Taylor said, it'll be a good thing because ultimately that's where it's moving anyway, whether anybody likes it or not.
Right. Yeah, I think everybody agrees that there was some value for the players that they were they deserve. But I didn't really, I'm so far removed from it as a fan. I'm kind of like, it sounds chaotic. It sounds like a mess. It'll work itself out. But then you have Saban retire or quit coaching. He's going to TV. He's going to be fine. He probably maybe already knew that. But he comes out publicly and says basically the same story you just told me, how, he's sitting in his office and the players are coming in going, well, what's it going to take to keep me here? And he's like, this ain't what I signed up for. I'm not, I'm not shaping young men and turning them into adults anymore at this point.
Which was a great clip.
Dude, it was, and it made me go, this is maybe more concerning than I thought. But
also on the other side, pro player, when coaches retire and you go there for Nick Saban, and he retires, or a coach moves and takes another job elsewhere.
Right.
Coaches get to do it all the time and play the you know how business works. It just that's the nature of the game.
There's always going to be something to complain about.
Right. There's always going to be something. So then when
it was not perfect.
Yeah. So then when it comes to arguing for the players, it's like, players should be able to do the same thing if they don't like their situation, or they find a better situation. Just because if a coach is in a bad situation, like they're moving on, they're retiring, whatever the case may be, it's just
because before NIL. Like when we were in college, like he'd give us a bagel, but no cream cheese because that'd be an NCAA violation. There was just so many crazy rules, and people are making billions of dollars off all these kids every single year, and these kids aren't seeing anything. Like a guy like Denard Robinson, Shoelace, who was our quarterback. He played quarterback, but he was an All-American running back because he set like a record for most rush yards. The amount of money he could have made at Michigan is insane, and he was on the cover of NCAA 14.
Yeah.
Like guys like that. You look back and it's like, man, if he was just born 8 years later, he would have.
They'd be making so much crazy,
money.
so much good money.
And
for
a guy like Denard, who's got a great head on his shoulders, like he's the type of guy you're like, man, I wish he made some more money. Because in the NFL, he gets there and he's in between. He's a running back, but I'll be honest with you, Denard, if you're watching this, he can't catch. Like he had no hands at all. My boy had bricks, but he could run. He could see the field really well. It's just like. You kind of just wish you walked away with some money in college.
Yeah. I mean, what's the likelihood of somebody with this new landscape, what's the likelihood of somebody going back and retroactively, having litigation against the A or somebody about over a cover from 15 years ago?
Right? I think stuff like that's going to ultimately happen some players are going to get paid.
Yeah.
All the legal stuff that happens and takes place, I think in due time, like stuff like that, could and probably will happen. You would always have to cut corners, like the bagel cream cheese. Like I remember a coach, he couldn't give me a Tempur-Pedic mattress, but he sold it to me for $1.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah. So that way,
Nebraska, I didn't know they were like that, huh? I did get one free meal one time. I went to a place, I ate, I was ready to pay them, but like, you're good, go ahead. That was the one thing I got. And I was like, yes.
Your entire college career.
It's not the SEC, man.
Yeah.
We did it, but we did it by the rules at the Big Ten.
Okay.
Well, they weren't winning either, so nobody won.
Yeah, that's true. We were not winning.
So both of you have incredible college careers. I guess the one thing I'd like to understand, or if you could help me kind of get inside your head during maybe, the NFL draft or during that time, right? You didn't get drafted, you were undrafted. What was all of that like knowing, I mean, you told dude years ago, man, I'm gonna go in the NFL. I'm gonna make it. You're trying to get there yourself. Both of you want to get to that point. You're moments away or weeks away or days away from learning where you're going to play in the NFL. You're going to have this opportunity. Walk me through, some of the memories that you have of that time frame, how overwhelming that must have been. Maybe you were naive. Maybe you had no clue how big the moment was or how big a step that was for you personally. And maybe some interesting stories from going through that process. 'Cause we don't have anything like that in NASCAR. There's not really a draft, and there's, you get called up, you get the phone call. Some guy wants you to drive his car. It's like, holy shit, what a great opportunity. That's kind of akin to that. But I mean, you guys know that's in your future. You're working toward it, and that's where you're headed. And finally you get there. So what was that like?
And NASCAR should have a draft.
That would be crazy.
That would be sick.
Because it's right. You get a phone call, say Dale calls you to,
Yeah.
like, hey, we're going to call you up or something. You're fired up with your family, but it's not like some spotlighted national moment to
you
where
just kind of like tweet
Not
it
on the
out.
calendar.
it's like,
Monday.
hey,
It happens.
every I don't know all the tiers of NASCAR and stuff, but let's just call it the minors. Like, you're in the minors, and then there's going to be this day that's dedicated to, hey, what drivers are going to go to the next level. That would be sick.
Yeah. You want to go first?
It doesn't matter. You can go.
I think as a football player, we all live at like a level of like delusion and constantly keeping a chip on our shoulder. And anytime you succeed in a goal, that goalpost moves to the next thing. There's not a whole lot of time to like, get excited about achievements. So for me, when I get to Michigan, it's like, man, if I start at Michigan, that'd be sick.
Yeah.
And so I end up starting. I'm like, man, if I could get all Big Ten, that would be something. I could probably get closer. I'd probably be like, I could get drafted. And so you become all Big Ten, and then it's like, man, but if I get all American and can become like a top 5 tackle, now I can be a first round pick. And then you start to achieve these things, and every time you achieve the goal, it's like, hell yeah, we did it. And then you're on to the next thing. So my junior year, I had the opportunity to leave. There's a thing you do in college after, once you're eligible, which you have to be 3 years removed from high school. Once you're eligible for the draft, you can send in this paperwork into the NFL, and they give you a conservative piece of paper that says, hey, we think based on your film, you could be this draft pick. After my junior season, played South Carolina in the Outback Bowl, played against Jadeveon Clowney. He had that infamous hit.
Yeah.
And I put the paper in. I always say that because JP's a big Gamecocks fan, and it comes up all the time. But I put the paper in, and it comes back. It says you would be a first round draft pick. So now I'm evaluating, do I go to the NFL? Do I not go to the NFL? And it was pretty split down the middle, 50-50 with friends and family. Guys are like, hey, you got to go get your money if you can. Other people are like, what about the degree? And all those types of things. Inevitably, when you're in college and you buy into a program the way Will and I did, you drink the Kool-Aid enough to be like, I want to achieve what I'm at here. So I end up coming back for my senior season with the whole goal in mind of, getting a better first round grade. I end up going to the draft, and the process of going to the draft for me was, you finish your last game, Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl against Kansas State. We get the brake speed off of us. The bus leaves me because I have so many friends and family members there. The bus leaves me, and that's like at the end of my college career. And I was like, they just kind of forgot me and kept going. And then I immediately go into training. I don't train in Arizona. I train in Florida, and then you go to the combine. At the combine, it's like, it is the most stressful time ever. You're up at 4:30 in the morning, you're taking a drug test, and you're going to get, 1,000 MRIs. You're meeting with all these different teams. You have to be on your best behavior. You're just like overstimulated the entire time. And at the end of those 4 days, you go get in your underwear and you go run as fast as you can. And so that's like, you spend between the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl to the combine only training for the combine. And once that ends, it's like, okay, now you have top 30 visits. So I'll go from Arizona. I would go in one day, like Arizona to Detroit, from Detroit to Minnesota, and then finish the day in St. Louis, sleep there, meet with St. Louis, and then go to the 3 other teams, and then back home. So it's just this crazy run.
What are the meetings like? What are they asking you?
It depends on the people. Like there's meetings in combine, there's official visits, and then there's like the train station was what they call it, because it's in Indy, and there's like this old hotel that had like trains in it. Like you'd sleep in like one of those cabooses or whatever they're called. The train station is very informal. It's kind of position coaches. They're sitting with you. They're talking X's and O's. Hey, our zone scheme, front sides, single, double, triple, back sides, A, B, C. This is a front.
Testing you?
Yeah, they kind of test you a little bit. What would you do in the situation? What kind of front is this? Over, under, Sam on the ball, 25 front, all these things. And so you're kind of taking a test. And then you go into the official meetings. And in there, there'll be the GM, sometimes the owner, the head coach, the OC or DC, based on what position you play, and then like a therapist will sit there, and they'll be evaluating you, and kind of ask you about things you've had in college, different situations. They'll bring up stuff like I got in trouble in middle school.
They brought it up.
Yeah, they brought it up. They do all of their homework on everything, so you're kind of sitting back like, oh my god. And then there's like wild stuff. I remember I was sitting with the Bengals, and I was in the train station, and some guy pulls me over to the corner. He goes, when I finish this question, you have 1 minute to answer. Pulls up his iPad. He goes, how many things can you do with a paperclip? Go. And just presses, like films me, being like, oh, you can unfold it, make it a little.
In the hell?
It's just wild.
Hey, that is
And
wild.
the whole idea is kind of find out like where your brain goes. I don't know. I don't know if I passed or failed that test, but it's crazy. And all those things, you're kind of like not truly present in the moment because you're just the end goal is getting drafted.
Yeah.
So you're just solely focused on like checking that box. And then my draft was the last one in New York at Radio City.
Yeah, Radio City.
Radio City. And I remember Monday. The draft's on a Thursday. Monday, I'm in Arizona in my mom's apartment, and the Atlanta Falcons are like, hey, we're in town. We want to come meet with you. Atlanta picks at 6. And they come to this small little apartment. There's like 8 of them in there. And they're like, hey, just so you know, if you're there at 6, be ready. I'm thinking, oh my God. That's where I wanted to go. I wanted to be a dirty bird. I went to Flower Branch, checked it out, met with Arthur Blank, who's the owner who started Home Depot. And he was like this suave, like always wearing a nice suit with one of those little puffy like scarves that come out. He had a mahogany desk with a picture of him on a horse. And I was like, this is the kind of guy I want to get behind. This is where I want to go. So the draft comes. And I'm, sitting in the green room, and I have this like old phone that sits there. You just wait for it to ring.
That's your phone.
That's my phone.
Who's going to call?
6 comes around. I'm like, looking at my family. This is it. We're doing it. Will you say something?
I've always wondered, like when you're sitting there, I mean, some of the players have an idea, a really good idea, right, of when they're going. Am I right?
Yeah, you have an idea. I mean, I think if you're a top 10 guy, you have an idea. Yeah. Like know
you
the
played
needs
every
of these
game
teams.
in your head of like.
Yeah,
it was like a couple teams, maybe Atlanta. I don't know if Tennessee was like on your radar, but
I met with Tennessee. But the Tennessee draft, they had Michael Roos, who was 10-year left tackle, like he was like been there forever, and they just got Michael Orr from the movie The Blind Side, who was playing right tackle. They got him in free agency that offseason. So I'm thinking, there's no way Tennessee's going to take me.
Yeah.
But if you can kind of look at based on where people are evaluating you and what the needs are, and you can be like, okay, I know these teams are going to pick me. I'll probably end up here or here. Yeah. Tennessee actually wasn't a team. I remember meeting with the Cardinals, and they were picking at 20. They're like, hey, if you're there at 20, I'm thinking in my head, please, God, don't be there at 20.
Yeah.
But come up and get me because I want to go back to Arizona. So 6 comes around, and there were 3 tackles in this draft, Greg Robinson, Jake Matthews, and myself. And it was kind of like a revolving door of who everybody thought was the best. Well, 2 comes around. St. Louis Rams, they take Greg Robinson. Greg Robinson's now in prison. 6 comes around, and it's like me and Jake. Like, who's it going to be?
Sucks for Greg.
Yeah.
Bad news.
Yeah, he was peddling some marijuana off the Texas border. Did not work out well for him.
Keep stomping him out.
Yeah.
Keep stomping him out.
Hell of a talent, though. Hell of a talent. So 6 comes around, and I'm thinking, all right, here we go. I'm like looking around, and all of a sudden, phone starts ringing. And it's 2 tables down, and it's Jake and his family just start celebrating. And I'm so mad.
Oh, no.
So livid at this point.
Yeah.
I get up and I walk. I go down the hall, and I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, this is essentially the Truman Show. Everyone's been playing a joke on you, but they've been watching your whole
you're
life.
the center of the universe.
Yeah, and this is finally where the prank gets you. You've never been good at football. You're actually terrible at football, and they're just tricking you now. I sit there, and then I have to sit through Detroit at 10. I'm like, please, I do not want to go back to Michigan. Detroit was bad.
Yeah.
And then 11 comes around, I get picked by Tennessee, and I was so mad. I was like, how am I going to play? They was like best available in their mind. Obviously, now sitting here, I'm like so happy I went to Tennessee, but damn, at the time I was pissed that I was taken not in the top 10. I was pissed that I wasn't the first tackle taken or even the second tackle taken. It kind of goes back to in the beginning what I was saying is you live in this level of delusion as a football player, constantly thinking everyone's always out to get you and giving you more of a reason for motivation or whatever. I'll show them that this, they made the wrong decision here.
Right.
And so you get done at 11, and the next day I'm in Tennessee, Southwest, C34, sit in the middle seat from New York to Nashville, meet with them, go back home for a couple of days, and you're right into OTAs. It was a wild experience.
Yeah, I wanted to do and accomplish all of those things. I think it's every time he kind of recites the stories and everything else, it's like my mind frame is like in all of those things that you like work for. Because every football player that, if you get the opportunity to go to college at the Division I level, I'm assuming I know everybody in my class at Nebraska, you're wanting to go to the NFL. Like, yes, you love playing college football. You love that you're embracing the suck with the boys at that university. But everybody's main goal is to get to the NFL. Like Taylor said, there's just that delusion that you're always thinking about, I want to be an NFL player. It's like I'd write being an NFL player for like, secret questions and stuff in high school. And I'm assuming every athlete does that for their sport that they want to go pro in. And, going through my senior year in Nebraska, you would meet with agents and know that you're kind of projected a little bit lower in the rounds. And, they had a projected 40 time of like 4.87 and some things is where it's like you're seeing the guys who are ranked ahead of you and you're playing that game like, you're watching their tape and finding those edges or finding those things where you think you are better than them. And so when the end of the year came, thought I had a solid year. And didn't get invited to the combine. Was pissed that I didn't get invited to the combine because a lot of it is like, man, if they're saying that I run a 4.87, like and doing all these things and running slow and doing all this slow stuff, like I know I'm going to wow people. In my brain, I'm thinking I'm going to wow people if I get to go to the combine. And not only that, but Bo and all my coaches and everybody would just say is once you get in front of people, like that's what you need. Like that is where you'll make your money and do things. So me, I'm just wanting to get in front of people. Mm-hmm. So I can get on the whiteboard, talk knowledge, talk football, talk all these things. And then I knew I would test well. And so when I didn't get invited to the combine, I was pissed about that because basically if you don't go to the combine, your focus is on pro day. And so all training and everything went into pro day at that point because it's like, and fortunately, Rex Burkhead had given me this book. It was called The Mental Edge, and Rex and I would always share videos and stuff with each other. But, it's like, the sun is going to rise the next day, and you can continue to pout that you're not going to be a combine guy, or you can, continue and be intentional with working on the pro day. And so all focus was on the pro day. Had an awesome pro day. Ran a 4.5. Ran well. Did all like bench all the things well. Got to meet with a couple coaches. Get on the board. Felt really good about that. And the consensus was like, hey, you made money today. And I was on cloud. And I remember calling my parents. I remember calling my boys. Just fired up. And my projection was 5th round to PFA, preferred free agent. So didn't necessarily know if I'd get drafted or not. Was hopeful and thought that I would. Had people over at the house in Bonne Terre, and
were you hesitant to invite?
No, I was never hesitant because also it's like, even if in my mind too, you go through all the mental gymnastics of everything. Like if I didn't go in the 5th round or upper 6th round, you're kind of wanting to. In my head, I would just tell people like it's almost better to be a preferred free agent, even though you want to see your name come across the screen.
But that is the case though. Like
that is actually the case.
You want to be a free agent.
Yeah, you would rather get to pick your opportunity versus you get drafted your 7th round because basically those lower round guys are essentially you're all the same.
Yeah, and you can evaluate teams, like see where linebackers are. But okay, my best shot to make the team is this team.
Right, but no, I was never hesitant on like having people over and stuff because it's like family wanted to come in town. It's like you have this dream your entire life. Like I remember being in the front yard with my dad, pretending to be the Dallas Cowboys. Like I was Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Jay Novacek, all these cats, right? And I was obsessed with wanting to be in the NFL. So no matter what, I knew I was going to go to a team. I didn't know if I'd get drafted or not, but we're all celebrating that like, regardless, I'm going to get to go to a team. And that's, everybody, we're all hype about it.
Yeah.
And so the draft happens. I remember day 2, the Chargers called, and I think it was Joe Barry on the phone, who I ended up playing for eventually in Washington. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about like, hey, I don't know how the draft is going to shake up, but we're looking at you in the later rounds. And I was fired up about it. Well, they drafted Manti Te'o like the second pick of that day. And so the Chargers, that was like the only call I had. I had like the Vikings, I don't say the Redskins, the Buccaneers, the Bears were kind of calling like later in the draft. And you just keep seeing these backers go off the board, these middle linebackers go off the board, and that I'm thinking in my head that I'm better than end of the career. Only one outlasted me, John Bostic. Hats off to him. But you're seeing all these cats. you're seeing all these cats go off the board that you're kind of like jaded about.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you have to be patient. You have to just like, hey, this is like an uncontrollable. And then my agent calls. He's like, hey, it's Buccaneers, Bears, Washington. And I'm thinking it'd be sick to go to the Buccaneers because get to play with Levante David, who was a teammate of mine at Nebraska. Then my agent quickly calls back, hey, you're a Washington Redskin. You're going to Washington. Not really, I didn't get to give much input,
Why?
like other than I have no clue. It all happened so fast, and then he kind of just tells me you're going to Washington. $2,500 signing bonus.
Hell yes.
Yeah, undrafted, get there, and obviously my career's played out to what it was. But in those times where you first step in the building, like my first interaction was RG3, and he's like fired up. Hey, welcome to the team. Like. You're going to rookie minicamp. You see London Fletcher on the treadmill, kind of like, putting the WD-40 on, getting ready for his final year of his career. And you just see all these grown men, all these guys that Alfred Morris, these guys that you know about, Santana Moss. And it was a grind, man. I mean, I was like at the bottom. There were 7 of us in the linebacker room. We ran a 3-4 at the time, so 2 inside guys. And I was 7 out of 7 in that room. There's an undrafted cat who was even ahead of me on the depth chart at first, which was very.
What was his name?
Jeremy Kimbrough,
Yeah.
and we were good buddies at the time that entire year. And shout out Jeremy Kimbrough. But I was 7. It hurt the ego. I was also number 46. That was my jersey. That was also Alfred Morris's jersey, who just got done had a Pro Bowl year. So to me, it's like, damn, the writing's kind of on the wall that I'll be getting cut. Yeah, man.
That's not a good sign.
Not a good sign.
Not a good sign.
That's the
at
worst
all.
sign you can possibly see.
And you
Especially
kinda,
if a Pro Bowler has the same number as you. You're like,
yeah, man.
all right.
And like it sucked. It was hard. Like, all things are like playing football at that level is hard. You go through the summer, you train, do all these things. You get into training camp. Day 1 of training camp, still 7 out of 7. So I'm like, I get to mix in with the 3. So I probably get 3 reps a day, probably. So you're trying to maximize those, right? And I remember all summer, I would just game plan the offense. Because you're going to be running the same install 1 through 5. Like, you're going to be running those main installs. The plays aren't going to change. They're going to run a wide zone on day 1. Day 2, the wrinkle of a boot or play action is going to come in. So I would game plan the offense. So that way, when I was out there, I could be loud. I could be demonstrative. Hey, look for this. X is nasty. He's inside the numbers. Alert, play action, pass. Like that, to where they have confidence. Like, okay, Comp kind of knows what he's doing out there. Day 1 of training camp, Keenan Robinson. And again, you've been a Washington fan, you're familiar with all this. Keenan Robinson tears his pec on day 1 of training camp. Mm-hmm. He was either the starting mic or the backup. Mm-hmm. So right from there, I go from being a 4, which there wasn't 4s, but being that 7th, to now I'm fully working with the 3s. That undrafted cat who was ahead of me, Jeremy Kimbrough, he's now working with the 2s. Week 2 of training camp goes by. Kimbrough tears his hamstring. So just like that, I'm thrusted in with the 2s. And I remember my first day rocking with the 2s. I had a little hamstring issue going on. And I remember telling the trainers, like, hey, if there's a way we can kind of like, I just use the term like duct tape this up to where, I'm taking Toradol, all the things to where I can practice. I'm like, I'm finally getting an opportunity to rock with the 2s. Mm-hmm. Your reps go from 3 or 4 to now you're getting 20-something reps a day. And I remember that first practice when I was a 2, I had 2 interceptions and 1 PBU. I picked off RG, I picked off Kirk, and I remember Shanahan, we get to our first preseason game at Tennessee, and Shanahan the night before the game, first time I get to kind of meet him, you're kind of nervous around the head coach, and he's like, oh, Mr. Interception. I'm just thinking, holy he knows my name. Like, he notices.
So awesome.
And that day, like, I remember they're like, hey, Comp, you're going to work with the 2s. Coaches want to see you play with the second team. And I didn't think my linebacker coach really liked me much of the time. He's kind of an older coach, very much a veteran type of guy, like the vets and everything else. He's like, coaches want to see you work with the 2s. And grinding through that preseason, led the team in tackles for the team. Wasn't very good on special teams, so I ended up making the practice squad. And I remember scouts and everybody else being like, hey, we feel like we have something in you. You need to work on your special teams and everything else, but you had a hell of a preseason. So from that moment, I was on practice squad all year, and that was kind of the undrafted life, man.
Yeah.
Week 17, 1 tackle.
Week 17, got activated week 17. I was pissed too because week 16, they said that I was getting activated. I call my dad. We have a little teary-eyed moment together. Like, yo, I'm about to dress. Your boy's about to dress. It's like Rudy. I'm about to play this week. Or not play. Oh, I was going to be on special teams.
Yeah.
Like, it's happening, NFL. Because practice squad doesn't travel or any of that stuff. And they go on to week 16 with a roster of 52. They leave 1 off. So even though coach told me like I'm getting activated,
Right.
that $15,000 that I would have got, it always pissed me off. But I got active week 17, then made the team the next year. But that's kind of the story with going undrafted.
When you see the preseason and guys who are fighting for a position, those undrafted cats or the 6th, 7th rounders, they are working like a linebacker is going to play every single snap at linebacker and then all 4 special teams.
Yep.
And it's just wild. As you get later in your career and if you're an established starter, you might not play a preseason game. You're hanging out, you're doing the seeds. It's like it's actually one of the most fun times in preseason because you're watching a football game in your uniform, but there's zero stress. And you'd see these cats come off like pouring sweat, blood, all over them. Then you're like, hey, brother, you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, bro. Oh,
Pat
it
him
was
on
a
the ass
grind.
of the
It was a
thing.
grind.
And it was, you and, the five offensive line starters, we would just hang out, tell jokes the whole time. And it's so interesting because it's like these guys are fighting for their lives right now.
So
we're
much
just-
anxiety. Like,
so much
God, if I
anxiety.
can just play well.
And me and the boys or, starters are kind of just sitting there like, man, we got this guy week 1, blah, blah, blah. It's just totally different mindsets on the same exact team. It's a crazy
And then a guy comes,
contrast.
it's like a fringe guy might be coming up to you like, hey, what are your thoughts? And you're kind of just thinking like, I mean, you should be all right. But you're thinking
hard.
about week 1. Like you're thinking
I
about
know.
going and getting the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Because fortunately, I got once you taste that sweet nectar of sitting out the 4th preseason game, it's a different vibe.
You can't beat it.
Yeah.
When you go into the locker room and you're like, man, nothing. You see all the boys stressed out and you're kind of like a little louder in the locker room.
Yeah,
dude. Laughs are a little heavier because you have nothing to worry about at all.
Yeah.
Hey, in 2 weeks we have our first game. I'll be so stressed out then, but not today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not this day. It's
I
the
always
best.
like-
Coach tells you, hey, you're sitting.
Look up at the
You're not
crowd,
dressing.
see your family. Hey,
Yeah.
we're doing.
I always like going to the 3rd preseason game because that was when you got to see the bubble battles. The players the players that were trying to play their way on the team, and preseason. You've got an idea of the depth chart as a fan. You've got an idea of the depth chart, but you're learning who these new guys are, right? That are the 4th, 5th, 7th rounders and the free agents that are trying to work their way onto the roster. And it was always interesting to me because we always, for Washington, we had a couple. There were 2, I can't remember their names, but there was a couple times where we had these little dynamo running backs. One of them was a goofy little dude that you were on the team back then.
Probably,
And he didn't make the team. He had a hell of a preseason.
maybe Mac Brown.
No, I don't know why I want to say he might have been from Oregon, but I can't remember. But he was small, but probably 3rd or 4th string. But he played a lot in the preseason and had some really good runs. But he ended up on the practice squad and then flamed out and never
It's
played.
like Seastrunk or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's him.
yeah.
What the hell?
Fast dude from Oregon.
Yes.
The running back room was kind of. There's a couple times it's like you had Alfred.
Yep.
You had who was it?
So like
You worked with him from Florida, Matt Jones, and then you had Mac Brown was an undrafted cat who kind of made the roster a few different times, so kind of be a fringe guy. You had Rob Kelly, Fat Rob, Chris Thompson. So sometimes
there was a lot
sometimes they don't make it literally because of the numbers, the
But
numbers game that goes on.
I get that, but you're sitting there watching a preseason game and you're like, I know they're playing against the 2nd, 3rd string players, but this guy's he's different. He's different than every other player on the field. I mean, you're watching the game and you're like, he's got a little step on everybody on the field, but he doesn't make the.
If I could guess, and Taylor, you can help out too. I think a running back, if you're not the starter, a situational guy, like the biggest things that a coach is going to look for in you, if you're lower on the depth chart and on the fringe, is are you good in pass pro, 3rd down, picking up blitzes, and are you dependable, and can you play special teams? Because even though you're running the ball well, if you're not going to be the guy toting the rock over Alfred Morris and Matt Jones and it's Chris Thompson, then you got to be able to know this guy, he can play and he understands all the 3rd down packages. He can pick up blitzes and he can play special teams. So that was I would assume probably wasn't his strength.
It always depends too about positions. Like your wide receiver group might be stronger than your running back group, and those couple of wide receivers that aren't going to see the field on offense, they're going to see the field on special teams, and that might take that running back's position on the special teams. And then you're like, if you're not a starter, if you're not in the top 2 of the depth chart, and you're not rocking all 4 special teams, it's probably
It's fascinating to me because you wonder, like, man, if this guy did have a clear path to playing and making the team, like, what would his life have been turned into, right?
Yeah.
Could it have been something, different? But dude, I mean, there's a guy will go out there and ball out in preseason, then you never hear from him again.
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
Right.
what the hell happened to that
I
guy?
know.
No, he's just gone.
Some
That's
of
the
it's just
craziest thing,
situation and
too.
Opportunity, man.
Yeah.
We were talking to Rand Carthon. That episode's going to come out next week, but we're just talking about cutting guys and all that, because in college, you're so used to, hey, I got to get bigger, stronger, faster, that 1%. Next year, I'll be a starter. Next year, they'll do this. Next year, I'll do that. As soon as you get to the NFL, unless you're a top 3 round draft guy, even the 3rd round, you're not guaranteed anything.
Yeah.
There is no next year. Like, if you don't make it here, you're probably done. And it's
Yeah.
just crazy seeing guys when those cuts come, and like later in my career when they started just doing that one big time cut after the 3rd preseason game, it was just like you see guys who thought they were going to be all right. It'll take a year, and they're coming in crying, and their dreams are getting just destroyed.
yeah.
It is so sad to see.
Oh, yeah.
It tears you apart to see those guys.
Yes. That is that is got to be tough. You know, we both share commonality in that we built podcast platforms, and we kind of almost did it around the same time. And you guys started podcasting during your playing careers, right? And I know, reading all the notes and everything that we've compiled, that this was a source of concern at times for you specifically. If I had to guess, you're thinking, man, this is gonna be fun. I see other people doing similar things. I kind of want to have some fun here. I remember the rudimentary origins of Bussin and how that all started. You per the notes and kind of per how you reacted to being on the show seemed a bit reluctant, because again, like I said before, like you're an NFL player, that takes precedent over everything. You can't let this look like or be perceived even as a distraction, even if it's not. So how did y'all navigate all that? I mean, I know you started it for fun, and it's become something much more serious. So how was there a moment where you're trying to talk him into doing this?
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, the origin of Bussin started in the cafeteria of the Titans. Like Will and I would sit there. When Will and I first met, we'd have our breakfast club, and it was me, Will, and another individual who we've already referenced as Mike Campanaro. And we would sit there and just laugh. Mike and Will were on 1-year deal, so they kind of found camaraderie there. And I was walking by one day, and they're having a good laugh. And I'm like, yo, what are you guys talking about? I want to laugh too.
We're new free agents, so we're kind of finding our common ground, friendship.
Exactly. And so we sit there, and I think 2 days later, I have to do the OTP, which is the official Titans podcast. They just started it that year. And I was like, Will, come with me. And we just go up there. Mike Keith, who's the voice of the Titans, he gets 3 words in the whole podcast. Will and I are talking the entire time. We just met. FaceTime and Will back and forth. And we get into this is 2018, right?
Yeah.
2018, we're playing the Colts, week 17 of the season. This is a win and get in game. Whoever wins between these two teams are going to make the playoffs. We get destroyed. The Colts beat the shit out of us. And so Will and I, after the game, we have a couple of extracurriculars. We go to a Chinese buffet or a Chinese restaurant, and we're sitting there.
Best walk.
And not the best part of town.
Yeah.
And it's me, Will, and my brother-in-law. We're kind of sitting there, and Will's like, dude, I want to do a podcast. And Will's talked about it a couple of times, and he can tell his side about being at the Redskins and keep people kind of getting his ear. But he's like, I'm going to do this. He says, like, I'm going to do a podcast regardless. I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable if I had my boy do it with me. So I'm like, in a unique state of mind, I'm like, dude, yes, I'll do that podcast with you. No problem. 3 days later, I get on a plane. I go to California and train for 3 months. And Will's like calling me, texting me and say, hey, you got to promise you're doing this, because if not, I'm not going to wait for you. I'm going to start getting the ball rolling. Because where Will was in his career, I'll let him speak more on it, it's like he saw like the end was coming. And for me, I just signed a very lucrative deal with the Titans. I thought
biggest in NFL history for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I'm playing forever in my mind. So I come back. We meet with this production company called Cardboard Cutout. What are they called?
Cardboard Films.
Cardboard Films. And Will gets there to meet with them, and I'm late. And they're like, hey, there's this bus out back of Wedgwood, Houston. If that'd be a cool studio for you guys. And Will sees it, and your reaction?
I was like, I hate it, but Taylor's going to get here and he's going to love it.
And it's the Earnhardt Jr. bus.
Because my anxiety is like, we need to start doing podcasts if Taylor's only going to stick around during OTAs, because he's going to go back and train again. But it was kind of like, you want to get to doing it, and you see the bus, and you see that it's going to be a project, and it's like, I don't think we have time for a project.
Right.
But Taylor gets there. And
I get there and I see it, and I was like, even if we don't use this, I'm going to buy this bus. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just put it in my backyard. Like, this bus is badass. Doesn't run. It's like a 74 Bluebird. Paint job on it. It's all rusted out. You walk in, there's stickers for all the places, because this bus used to travel from NASCAR event to NASCAR event. And I grew up, my grandparents would always take me to the PIR, and we would go like every year to that. That was like kind of a cool little deal. So we put, $10,000 into it.
Yeah, it was like 10 to 12, and you're like, hey, these guys said that they could turn around in like 10 days.
Yeah, and they got it. They get the whole thing done, and we're shooting our first episode 2 weeks later. And at the time, I was a little more reluctant to do it, because we talk about the delusion of a football player and how the football player is perceived. If you don't seem like you're solely 100% focused on ball, people think this guy doesn't care about his career.
Yep.
He doesn't care about the main thing. When in reality, guys get home, they're playing video games, they're venturing in real estate stocks, like they're trying to add to their portfolio. They're doing things outside of football to create that wealth once football is over, and people just don't get to see that. This being on social media and a platform that people can come, evaluate, and judge, I was extremely uncomfortable with that, because I was like, we all become victims. I don't know if you are. You don't seem like this kind of person, but getting on Twitter and putting your name in the search bar and then seeing all the horrific things people are saying about you. We're all victims of that.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't want to give anybody a reason for X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
So we came up with this plan of, we're going to do as many episodes as we can, backload them, and then during the season, I will not do it. And that would kind of be my insurance policy. And we did that for a couple years.
Make you feel better about it.
Yeah, it made me feel better about it. Made me feel like, all right, I can keep the main thing. Because to me, it's like, to take out an hour a week, regardless of when it is, to do a podcast, that's not a big deal at all. But it seems like such a massive deal to these fans who are relying on you to, have they want to be their team to be successful. And if you're a massive piece of that, you want them to feel like, all right, like our guys got our back.
Yeah.
So there was definitely, like, Will bought in obviously immediately, and it took me until the back end of my career to where I was like, all right, I need to put more into this, shoulder the burden of Bussin With The Boys and how much it goes into it, but that didn't happen for the first 2-3 years.
Right. You said you almost quit a few times that I never knew about.
Yeah, there was a couple times I was like, I'm just gonna stop doing this. I was gonna level heads prevailed, but I was definitely like,
just like college.
There was a couple times I was like, why am I doing this?
Snowed in Nashville.
Yeah, because I did. I tore my ACL in 2020, and there was, Will and I were doing a show together. I wouldn't text back Will for a month.
Will,
not a month, but yeah.
I would just go radio style. I was in the deepest, darkest holes in my head. Where I was just like,
he's like, hey, I'm going to go here for a couple of days, and a couple of days turns into a week. Hey, I think we're going to get the family out here, and we're going to be out here for a month.
Yeah, and it was just,
we'll take the operation out there, like just ups and downs, growing pains.
Man.
Will, did you ever have any kind of a significant knee injury like that?
I tore my PCL.
You did?
Yeah.
War Daddy still played?
I tore my PCL in, when was that? 2016.
Okay.
2016, I tore my PCL. But no, I never, thankfully, knock on wood, never tore my PCL or ACL.
How challenging was that? Coming from my perspective as a fan.
Challenging.
Yes. Like,
you talking about me?
Yeah.
It was as his boy, challenging.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, as a fan, that is the market. That's like an ACL is as bad as it gets. Like that's the worst injury that any player has to. I'm just assuming like that has to be the fear for any player in the league.
It's
right?
the most. It definitely seems like the most common ligament issue that people have. I think Achilles is right up there with it. People have back issues and neck issues all the time. Like with football, the injury rate's 100%. And so you're going to get hurt. It's just, hey, what's it going to be? And a lot of times, like for me, I remember my senior year of high school, and I saw this kid. His last name was Williams. Kyle Williams. His brother was Kyle Williams. But anyway, Williams. He goes across the middle, plants, tears his ACL, and I was a senior in high school, and I thought, holy shit, you can get hurt playing football? I had no clue. And I had, in college, got my tonsils out when I was 21 years old, and dislocated my elbow that they reset, didn't have to get surgery. It was back in 6 weeks. So I never had injuries. I was always a guy that a couple nicks and bruises here and there, just like every player has, but never went through an ACL or any massive surgery or anything like that. So 2020 happens, and I'm evaluating both doctors. Dr. Elatrosh, who's in LA, and then Dr. Andrews, who was in Pensacola, Florida.
Do you remember the moment it happened on the field, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It was a pass screen left. It was to a 2 wide receiver side. The wide receiver was supposed to push up and then come back, and he didn't. It was AJ Brown. AJ didn't get the shoulders turned to the corner. So when I came, there was very little room for error for me to get that block. So I went to plant and dive, and as I planted, I kind of just kept going in the direction I was initially running. My knee gets all hot, and I'm kind of laying there like, yo, that's weird. That's a weird feeling. Yeah, it felt the same thing with my elbow dislocated. Like it didn't hurt.
Nothing like a pop, snap, nothing.
No,
you didn't hear anything?
It just felt like just felt really, really warm.
Wow.
And it was such a weird feeling. And same thing happened with my elbow. Like I remember I went down to the ground with some guy, and I was like, damn, my arm feels like hot. And I looked at it, my palm was facing the opposite way. And so the bones like switched sides. There was an elbow doctor there. He popped it right back in. It was terrifying. I thought it was over. But it's so hot. And then Dr. Petty, who is our the team surgeon, comes over, checks my knee, and I go, it's my ACL, isn't it? And he's like, I don't want to say anything right now. In my head, I'm like, confirmed ACL. Sure. So they get me the blue tent, and I sit there. I'm like, can you just check it one more time? And he's like, yeah, I can check it if you want. And in my head, I'm like, maybe it's miraculously back. He checks it and he goes, it's your ACL. And I remember...
How can they tell?
There's this test where you hold the thigh and then you relax the calf and you can pull. And when you pull the calf up, the ligament's supposed to stop the knee from going forward. When there's no hard stop, that usually means that the ACL's been torn. So he checks it again and he's like, you tore your ACL. And I'm not in any pain at all. Zero pain. I go and I grab him and I just sobbing in his chest. Like I'm soaking his shirt. I'm just crying so hard because I've never ever had an injury, for a real injury
This
before.
is in the tent.
This is in the tent. This is week 5 against the Houston Texans.
In the middle of the stadium, full freaking grandstands, game going.
Right.
And you're in your own little thing.
It's crazy the different worlds you live in. Even during a game when you're not hurt, everyone, there's 11 guys in the field, but there is still an individual storyline going on for everybody. You're essentially playing this game in your head of, I'm taking care of this, and you're not really thinking about anybody else other than the people you have to communicate with, and that's it. And now you're just doing your job. So while a game's going on, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I've never been hurt before. I go up, and my wife's in the suite with our kids. My youngest daughter is a couple months old, and I walk up, and I'm still in my cleats, shoulder pads, jerseys off, but I have pants on still, cleats, the whole thing.
You went to the suite.
I went to the suite to see him because I was I just wanted to feel safe in that moment. Because you get this taken away from you. It's I know my season is over. I know that this is going to be a long road because you see guys still go through it all the time. And it was just I just wanted to be with them for a little bit. So I sit there, we watch the game, and then she comes downstairs with me in the locker room. I get changed. I sit, and then the evaluation starts about who to go to. And the 2 best doctors are Elatrosh and Andrews. And Andrews was just closer to me. And I had a friend, Tyler Hubbard, who was part of Florida Georgia Line. He had a tour bus. And he's like, hey, man, if you want, because when you fly, if you have any kind of issue at all, that inflammation's massive. And I know we got to get inflammation out there. I'm thinking in my head everything I can possibly do to make sure that this thing is as good as possible. So next season I come back. You think about Adrian Peterson. And he came back.
Oh, then when you were trying to come back in 3 months.
Yeah, because Dobson, Will's
Sue.
strength coach at Nebraska, calls me a day after I get the ACL, and he's like, Sue came back in 4 months. And I was like, done. That's what we're doing. Challenge accepted. So I get on Tyler's bus. We drive down to Pensacola, Florida, and I end up choosing Andrews because he was closer. And
this guy had a good track record. I mean, he's well respected.
Arguably the best surgeon of all time. Yeah. He is one of the best, if not the best, orthopedic surgeon ever.
Right.
And I meet with him. He does my surgery, tells me everything goes amazing, and then I'm having the whole time swelling. I'm having pain, the top of my knee pain where it's I can't really squat. And it's just, bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm doing I already said my daughter's 2 months old when this happens, 3 months old. My kids do not see me. I am laying in a chair. I'm elevated. And once I was able to walk, I was on crutches and I was doing my rehab, cold tubs, red light therapy. I would fly this lady in named Anna Hartman from San Diego. She would stay with me for months at a time so I could do 3 rehabs a day, working on core, work on this, doing Pilates. Literally, my day would be from 8 a.m. until I went to bed at night. And I was it was just me in my own world. My kids are missing out on time with me. Yeah. And it got so bad to the point where Will and Talon would call each other and figure out how they're going to handle Taylor. Like what this guy's going through the hell right now. And I'm in a different mood, all that. And the person that was training and Talon sit me down and essentially have like an intervention with me, telling me this is all in my head. Like everyone says, the doctor, you keep sending MRIs. He says, you're fine. You're okay. You just never been hurt before. Essentially, they're calling me a mental midget. They're saying like, this is not it. And
how'd you feel about that?
You know, how do you think you probably didn't feel too good about it?
Bad intervention?
Felt
Do what?
It was a bad intervention?
It was a bad intervention because to me it's like.
You ever watch that show?
Yeah.
12 Steps or whatever it is?
No.
The show's called Intervention, I think.
Is
No,
it?
I don't think I've
That's
seen
why they
that
sit
show.
around there like have like
Yeah.
notes. How have you
At the
affected
end
my
of-
life?
At the end of every show, it's
Yeah.
a drug intervention show. You've never watched
No,
it?
dude, I'll check it out. I'll
Never
check
seen
it out
it.
for
It's
you.
serious, dude.
All right, I'll
It's
check
very
it out.
serious, yes. I've watched many shows.
Yeah.
But at the end of every show, there's an intervention, and they either go and get well, and then you see this like 12 months later, we're great, or they get up and leave.
Oh,
Did you get up and leave?
What did you do?
I can't remember. I remember we were sitting on the back patio and they were sitting me down talking to me, and it was like one of those. They're talking to me and they're giving me the intervention, and I didn't realize this is an intervention until like it was almost done. I'm like, wait a second, are you guys saying that I'm a crazy person and this is all crazy? Because they kept getting swollen and all that. So you know, whatever happened there, I was obviously really mad about the situation. Then the season comes, and right before the first week, I remember calling Will and I was like, dude, I'm so back. Like, we are about to have the best game of my entire career. Like, we put it in a game plan. There was a lot of screens that were only to the left.
You've been through practice. You've been on the field.
You were feeling nervous.
Yeah. Oh, no,
You
that
had
was
jitters.
I was feeling jitters because I was like, man, this game, the game plan, the offensive linemen don't have like a lot of things, but like you can tell when the game plan's being put together, like what they're leaning towards doing. And a lot of them, the hardest blocks, it seemed like they were put on me quite a bit.
Yeah, Taylor's on an island while they slide the other way.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, during camp, my knee would hurt, but they'd give me like a couple days off, and then I would go do a couple things, and they just kind of keep your confidence up the whole time. And
I have one question. Sorry to interrupt.
go ahead. No, you're good.
I've always wondered, like, when you have an injury like that, the first time you really go full speed, like, do you remember that day? Being
Yeah.
nervous? Like,
I mean-
here, I'm going to go out there and I'm about to see if this can happen.
Mm-hmm. They do a good job of easing you. And Todd Torricelli, the head trainer, like you'll go and they're like, all right, you're gonna do the conditioning test, and that's when they kind of evaluate if you're gonna be on PUP or not. Which I don't know what PUP stands for, but essentially it means like you're not ready,
physically
yeah.
unable or something
Yeah.
like that.
Physically unable
There
to
you go.
perform. And I do the conditioning test, and our GM John Robinson comes up and goes, hey, you look good. We're not gonna put you on PUP. We're gonna allow you to go and practice. So the first like week of camp, I'm only doing individual, which is kind of nice because camp is brutal. It's a hell of a time. I go, I do the warm up, I would do individual, and I just remember like doing cutoff drills. I would turn, you have to plan on that right leg, and just kind of trying to like dig into the line of scrimmage with it. It just felt, I was like, oh, okay, I don't know about that. And then you get a couple more reps, like, all right, that feels a little bit better. Okay, I'm not. And then
That would be nerve wracking.
yeah, just like
to
kind
say,
of like
yeah.
planning on it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think like a test of a true athlete or a really good athlete is like athletes are the ultimate compensators. So if you have a shoulder, you'll figure out ways to not use that shoulder as much, but still be just as, do your job just as good. And so I was kind of in that process in my head of being like, okay, if I can't plant, maybe I put my leg a little farther back and I can lean more on my left leg. And you're just kind of playing things in your head always, but it takes time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember the day before the Cardinals game in 2021, I call Will. I'm on my way to a guy named Adam Bobo's house to go get an IV. And I'm telling Will about this game plan and how, like, kind of there's a lot that's riding on me doing my job in this game. And I was kind of stoked about it, but I was also very, very nervous. Like, but we're giving each other the whole like miracle pump up speech, Friday Night Lights type
Get
of
the
stuff.
fight started.
Yeah, get the fight started. Like, yeah, get the first head out of the way and get moving. And that day I woke up, it was a noon game against the Cardinals, and it was the first game I ever played, or before the game, where I was like, I'm not nervous at all. Like, this is going to be the exact storybook ending to a traumatic
Comeback player of the year.
experience. Comeback player of the year type of situation. The guy I was playing against had 5 sacks that game. The first play of the game, we run an open side to my side, open side, outside zone, and he gives me a step outside, goes inside, tackles Derek for a loss, and it was just hell all day long. I go up to the suite after the game, and I'm sitting there with Taylor, haven't even showered, just put my clothes on. I was like, you don't deserve to clean this off you yet. I sit with my wife, and she goes, I go, that's the worst game I've ever played in my entire life. And my wife goes, that's the worst game I've ever seen anyone play in my entire life. Yeah. And we were just kind of in consensus of how bad it was. That night, Will comes over, and I'm just watching film, and he's just kind of sitting with me, and we're just quiet in my room, just quietly being sad. Like, he's like being sad for me. That was tough. It was a tough year for sure. So it didn't go the way I wanted.
So did you ever feel like you got back to elite?
No, unfortunately, no, because I played 2021.
Toward the end of that
2021.
Toward the end of that season, like you were based on the roller coaster of emotions and everything else, and having that start from that first week. I know the back half of the year, you were obviously playing more consistent, better, because you had a couple hiccups to where before the Seattle game.
Hyperextended my knee in Seattle.
He hyperextends his knee in pregame.
The same knee,
right?
Yeah,
same knee,
and then he can't play in the game.
Yeah, couldn't play in that game. And then something happened in the Rams game where it's like my knee was just hurting, and I was like, I can't squat down, so I didn't play.
There's
in the
only
Rams
a very
game.
small window where you played like a few games, because even at the end of the year, I think you might have had a back or something. Because that's also when my mom passed.
Yeah. That we played a Thursday night game against the 49ers, and I had like a back. In the first quarter of the Steelers game, I got an SI thing, and I played that game, and then I like couldn't walk.
Did you ever?
Because you were able to come.
Yeah.
You were able to come to the hometown.
Yeah.
When you guys, when the Titans were playing.
Just like showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever? Do you think if for most players that have that type of injury or any injury like that, are you ever able to like not think about it? Like, is it going into every game or every snap or every time you're going to put your foot on the ground?
I think
is it always in the back of your mind?
Time heals all wounds. Like when you are practicing for the first time, it's all you're thinking about. The first game, you're like kind of checking in with it always. But as you get farther and farther removed, it's kind of like when you get sick and you think, man, all those times I didn't wash my hands when I should have washed my hands. I'm going to wash my hands so much more. Then once you get done getting sick, you're like, you get farther away, and you kind of just go back to your old routine. Yeah. That's how I envision it going. For me, I did, the ACL in 2020. 2021, I missed 5 games. 22, I was still having swelling and pain, but I was like, it became long enough where I was like, this apparently is just how it is now. You just got to keep playing. And then the first play of the second game, like
sniper
got me in the off a play action, and I just kind of laid there, and that's when I knew the writing was on the wall, and that's when I found out all the stuff about my first surgery and how to get it redone and stuff like that.
What was the things that you found out?
Well, it's an ongoing lawsuit right now, so there's not like a whole lot I can really get into. Sure. But I was just told that the way my knee was done isn't the best way a knee should have been done to have an ACL for the most maximum recovery. And so I went to Elatrosh. When I spoke to Elatrosh, he made it seem like from the day I was sewn up, it was just not going to work out. And that's because of the swelling. And I think that's the biggest bummer to me, is besides my career being over, is when I got my ACL, I was 7 years in the league. And I remember Todd Torricelli, the head trainer, sitting me down. He goes, you want to know what the good news or the bad news? And I was like, tell me the bad news. He goes, your ACL's torn. The good news is your knee looks great. There's no cartilage, there's no cartilage damage. Like, your knee looks like a knee that hasn't played 7 years in the NFL. So you have that going for you, which is great. A lot of guys would trade knees with you right now, even with the ACL. Man. So I was fired up. Fast forward to 2022, when I had to get my surgery done again. I sit down with Elatrosh, and he's like, "Yeah, we got to fix that ACL. It's an incompetent ACL." And it looks like, based on the knee degeneration you've had, you're going to need a knee replacement by the time you're 50 years old. And that's how I was like, damn. Because of the ACL, my joint apparently had to rely on other things to where now there's like a whole bunch of degeneration and the cartilage and the kneecap and all that. So a lot of stuff that, was way over my head. I didn't go to school for, but it was a wild deal.
What if so you have the knee and maybe other things. You talked about how football is 100% injury rate. Will, what ailments do you walk around with today after all of your...
Do we have enough time?
Yeah.
My low back is my biggest usual problem. I still get arthritis in my foot. Like, I had a few surgeries in college. I had a sports
foot injury?
I broke my foot in college.
Yep.
I was apparently born with an extra perineal tendon in my ankle.
Hell yeah.
Lucky you.
So I had to get that removed.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe that was the extra.
You get to keep it?
I was like, oh, it's not
It's
like
an extra
the
thing.
black guys where they get extra muscles and stuff. I got to get mine removed. What else? Labrum surgery. I had full reconstruction in college on my right labrum. Unfortunately, I avoided the knife in the NFL. I tore my PCL. That was grade 2, but there's not a lot of surgery that you can. They're like, oh, you can. Once we rehab this, it was toward the end of the year. They're like, you'll be solid. I still it'll get inflammation at times, but I also had a Liz Frank on my right foot. That was in 2017, I believe.
What does that feel like?
Dude, it honestly, I planted my foot in the ground and it felt like somebody stood over me with a shotgun and shot me in the top of the arch. Yeah, and I went down immediately, and I remember kind of getting to the side, and I was like, my entire arch is broken.
Yeah.
Just thinking my entire arch is broken.
Yeah.
And then you learn about the Liz Frank. Fortunately, it tore, I guess, in the most perfect way possible to where I didn't need to have surgery. But then the next year's when I went to the Titans. So I'll still get arthritis and stuff there at times, but... So all of it, man, I feel the most in my low back. My low back bothers me the most right now.
What is that injury that it's kind of like a pain tolerance situation, but it's the heel of your foot? Happens all the time. You hear about it all the time.
You're talking about the plantar fasciitis.
Yes, I have
plantar
that.
fasciitis.
I have it right now.
Dude, it's a
can't
monster
get it
to
to go
rehab.
away.
You probably have to. Are you doing rehab every day?
No.
Well,
No.
That's fine.
that is one you have to stay on every
Really?
day because those suck.
I went to the doctor.
Turf toe,
I had,
plantar
So
fasciitis.
Turf toe's a different dog now.
Yeah.
yeah, I have that going on my right foot, and I went to I couldn't hardly walk on it. Right, it's just like my heel's pulverized. It feels like it's just painful as and so I don't know how it happened or why you get it, but I went to the doctor. They gave me some insoles, gave me all this tape and this tape stuff I got to do, and I did it for a while, and it kind of got a little better, and then I thought, all right, I'm over it, but it's still
Classic guy move.
Dude,
you get almost done with it, you're like, all right, we're solid now.
I'm just like, man, it's just gonna go away, right? If I just go easy on it.
What
right?
sucks is ultimately injuries. They all suck.
Yeah.
It's like you're like, oh man, would I rather have this? Would I rather have that? Then when you have it, you're just thinking, oh, this sucks. Yeah. Unless you get the major surgeries.
Did y'all
the shoulder was 4 months.
Did you ever have turf toe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
The worst part on some of those, like plantar fasciitis, turf toe, tendonitis, if those act up, or if you get something like that early in the season, it's going to be a long season because it's like you need rest to kind of help it.
Yeah.
But there is no rest when you're in the season.
I can't imagine how you could do anything with turf toe.
Anything soft tish as well.
Yeah.
If you get that in camp, you're essentially going to have that issue the entire year.
Yeah.
There's really no way to get around it.
Yeah.
Unless you take weeks and weeks off.
So, Will, you got a call from the Jets to play at the end of your career, and you said no?
No, not at the end of my career. That was the first year into podcasting. So we got the podcast going.
You didn't. You said no to
so
the Jets.
I'll give you what my strategy was behind it. And fortunately, it played out. It kind of played out each year like I was hoping it'd play out. My transition out of the NFL was probably the best I could have envisioned it. After I got done with the Tennessee Titans that first year, and we started up the podcast and everything else, they drafted Rashawn Evans in the first round. And when you're in a position like I am, you almost need somebody to go down or get hurt or something. But Rashawn never got hurt, which is a positive. But in my situation, you almost need that to happen so you can get an opportunity, so that we can have film. So going into that next free agency is one of those things where I sat and thought about it as we're starting the podcast. I knew I wanted to go all in on it because I thought it'd be, it was awesome to have Taylor involved. In Washington, I kind of dabbled with the idea, but I never had the courage to do it. And then there was in Washington.
Dabbled with the idea of
podcasting because when I had my Liz Frank, you're on IR for the rest of the year. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to the Rogans of the world, Bigger Pockets in real estate. I've always loved podcasting, and I always thought it'd be cool. And
let me tell you, man. I mean, for everybody listening, you ain't making no damn money in the first handful of years podcasting.
No,
it's not. You need a salary. I know you're playing football, but I'm because when I don't know how to say this politely to some of the people that are part of Dirty Mo Media, but man, when we started this stuff, I was like, yeah, okay, I don't listen to podcasts, whatever you want to do, right? And I kind of took it half-heartedly for the first handful of years before I realized, okay, I mean, I don't know how you had the vision and like, man, I'm going to do this podcast thing and it's going to become something.
So are you asking the vision stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's part of the conversation of you're saying no to the Jets for whatever reason. You're going to tell me that, but you're also creating this podcast thing and you're actually pretty sure about it, or you're wanting to build it. Like I wouldn't have expected it. I wouldn't have thought that a player would think, podcast. I'm going to make some, I'm going to do some podcasting.
Especially the time that we started the podcast too. There was no
wasn't podcasting.
Yeah,
back
there was
then.
no
Right?
active
Nobody
NFL
doing
players
it.
doing
But
it.
it also kind of was like there's always these waves of it. We were the first NFL active NFL players that owned the podcast. It wasn't Bleacher Report. It wasn't ESPN. It wasn't nobody being like, hey, we're going to pay you a little bit of money. You do a show for us. Yeah, it was our show. The thought was, man, and Taylor knows this, even when he talks about Breakfast Club, like when you're at the cafeteria, when you're having all these conversations in the locker room, in the sauna, in the cold tub, whatever it is, like there's some fascinating conversations. In football, you're always wearing a helmet. You're told to sacrifice for the logo, the name on the front, not the name on your back. And so the idea of podcasting, like kind of being into podcasting and then seeing that there was money to be made. You'd see McAfee, he retired 2 podcasts with Barstool, and you see JJ Redick doing it in the basketball world. And there was a few athletes doing it a little bit. And then you kind of see, you see where Rogan's at. You see what podcasting started to do as we're starting the podcast. And the whole idea was, can we bring the locker room to life? How can we get how can we take these conversations that we're having in passing around training camp, around the facility, and put microphones in front of us and bring the locker room to life? And so the thought of going all in when Taylor and I decided to do the bus and get the bus decked out with the studio, and our first podcast with Delaney Walker starts getting written about in pro football talk, and national media kind of grabbed it because he talked about an IV. He almost died from an IV. And the way he's telling a funny story in a funny way. He didn't actually almost die. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But ultimately, that is now getting showed in the team meeting. Like, you have to be careful what you say because they're going to take it and run with it. Now the training staff looks bad because it seems like we put a bad IV in the Delaney Walker. Yeah. And then Vrabel comes on, talks about cutting his off for a Super Bowl. Yep. That goes viral. Jalen Ramsey comes on, talks about how he DMs receivers girls on, and then brings it up to him when he's standing across from them at the line of scrimmage. That's taken. And I get on the phone with McAfee. I remember getting on FaceTime with Pat McAfee, and he was like, look, if you're going to podcast, you need to do it consistently. If you're going to show up once a week, you need to show up once a week every week. You need to treat your audience, like everybody who's tuning in, like your friend. Like, you need to just treat them like your friend. If you're saying you're going to show up once a week, you need to show up once a week. Then Taylor and I went on a terror one week, and we blogged 12 podcasts because it's like, how do we stretch this out over the season? Yeah. Because we were only going to do it in the summer and then focus on football for the season. Mm-hmm. But I was very much all into doing it. And my thought behind it was, when Rashawn played that year and I didn't get a lot of action, there's not a lot of tape. I'm going to be a veteran going into year 7, I believe, at the time, and I know I'm going to be a minimum veteran. I'm going to get the vet minimum. There's going to be no signing bonus. I'm going to have to be on a 90-man roster now and make the 53. After my stint with Washington and growing the way I grew there, and then having an opportunity to hopefully win a starting job with the Titans that didn't work out, I was kind of over the whole that undrafted, just putting your head down, reinvent yourself on another team that the organization knows nothing about you. You'd love to stay with the Titans because they do. You'd love to have coaches with Washington because they know you. I'm going to have to really make the team. And I was kind of over that grind period of doing that. My agent would say, hey, Eagles want to fly you in for a workout, or they want to fly you into practice and OTAs, but they're not going to sign you. They just want to see how you perform. Mm-hmm. I advise you not to, because it's all risk. All you're doing is risking. If you get hurt, they don't have to pay you any money. And so I turned down workouts from the Eagles, the Jaguars. This was in the springtime during OTAs. I knew I wasn't going to do OTAs because my thought was, I'm just going to bet on the resume I have at this point, because if I'm going to play, it's going to be the Joe Barrys, the KO, the coaches that I've played for, who are going to want to bring me in because they know me. And a linebacker is going to get hurt, and you can find a lot of guys that can run and tackle and plug and play. And I knew I could figure out a playbook fairly quickly. So I was like, I'm going to skip off-season stuff, and I'm going to go all in with this podcast with my boy. He's in town. He gets back in OTAs, or 4 OTAs, and then also doing the podcast. So it's like, I can't leave, because if we're trying to build this thing and grow this, if I just leave now, it'll never get off the ground. And then we get to training camp, and my thought is, again, betting on guys getting injured. I don't want to do a training camp at all. Like, I don't want to go through the grind of being at training camp. Saints called right before day one of training camp. Hey, we'd like to bring Will in with the intent to sign, bearing all this stuff workout wise. And I remember saying no to that because we had a couple pods lined up, a couple things going on. It's like that's when Schaub comes on, Kyle Vinoy, the Patriots coming to town to practice. Taylor on an off day might come in. I kind of can't remember.
I think I did Van Noy.
Yeah, the boys all in for, the boys all in for a season.
Choice, though, to say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work on
it. Was scary, like, just because it's risky. It's like, because football is all I know. Yeah. And it's like, man, it's obviously good money.
It's podcasting good money.
Now it is.
Then.
No.
Right.
Right. You put up like close to six figures to just basically have all the equipment, have the bus,
break even,
hire some contractors at the time because we didn't have any full time guys like we do now.
Yeah. So I mean,
and you're just in the red we were probably in the red for 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah, probably.
Taylor, did you think him not taking those deals for the Saints and so forth was a good decision at the time?
I actually didn't know he got offered by Eagles and Jags to get those, like, to go to OTAs. Yeah. The game plan that Will was going with, when you get to that point of your career, that is a good move. Like, kind of waiting out camp, because the only thing that can happen in camp if you're not guaranteed 53 is get injured.
Yeah. Right.
So if you
there's no signing bonus, you're not getting any money.
Right.
Got it.
And so for Will, it's like to focus on something else, but also kind of keep this like in his back pocket just in case, because it ended up working out the next 3-4 years. Was like, week 4 happened, and all of a sudden the Raiders call. The Saints, he ends up in the story's about to tell. He ends up going to the Saints for those 10 days and was gonna play, but ends up getting hurt. And it's like it's just kind of like it was a tactical move. But when you get in that situation, you can't just think, I'm gonna go play for the love of the game, because then the risk and the reward they don't. It's not good.
Yeah. And so say no to that. We end up doing a few pods. I think a week or two of preseason, somebody goes down for the Saints. Saints call again for another workout. They're like, we'll just work Will out individually, because we said no the first time. Like, no, he's not going to come in with a group of linebackers. You're going to bring him in solo, or he's not going to come. So the second time, they're like, hey, we'll bring him in solo. Intent to sign. We had somebody go down. Again, it was a no, which was, again, it's like I'm trying to finesse to where I don't have to really play in the preseason or play in training camp or put that wear and tear on my body. And again, we're podcasting. We've had a few things hit viral. It's like, this is a kind of a fun thing. It's kind of cool. And so the Jets call. Who was the cat? Avery Williamson. He tears his ACL. Jets call, and they're like, hey, we want to bring Will in right now to sign and play, but the Jets weren't very good, so I said no to that. Then we have Sean Johnson on, the Olympic gold medalist.
He should have signed with the Jets.
Yeah. And then the next week, another guy from the Saints goes down, and they're like, hey, we plan on signing Will. We just want to work him out, and we'll be good to go. So go and work out for that's when I was like, okay, I'll go to the Saints, because I fly into the Saints 48 hours before their third preseason game. Mm-hmm. I do a workout.
What's the workout like?
The workout was pretty tough because I was by myself. It wasn't coaches I knew, and they're kind of putting me through the ringer. But at that time, I'm still in shape. Like, I'm still taking football seriously, like fairly serious. Yeah. At that point, the next 2 years is where I was kind of like, having more fun than anything else. But I was ready to go. Like, I was in shape for those workouts. And they're like, hey, what do you feel more comfortable at? Mike, Will? I was like, either one. Doesn't matter. Put me wherever you want. And we had 48 hours to the third preseason game. I go through basically a helmets-only practice, and I take like maybe 2 reps, maybe do a couple walkthrough things, and I'm kind of picking up the playbook a little bit to where the coach asks, like, hey, we weren't going to plan on playing you in the third preseason game, but, I mean, would you want to? And I'm thinking I got nothing to lose. I can truly show these cats that I can take information in and put it to practice. But now I'm a little nervous because I'm like, I say I am, or I'm going to be a fraud out here. End up playing well in the third preseason game, to where now I get moved up to one base. I'm starting Mike for week 1 and 2 until Alex Anzalone comes back from his injury. So they needed a Mike backer to start week 1.
Hold on. If you are on the roster on week 1, you get the money for the entire year.
For the entire year.
So we're
that's what you're trying to finesse.
High 6 figures.
Yeah, I think at that point, it was year 7, $900,000 that would have been guaranteed, like whether you get cut or not.
So if it's Wednesday of week 1 and he's on the roster, and then the next Monday he gets cut, $900,000.
Yeah. And while this is going on, because I remember talking to you and Taylor on FaceTime too, but before I signed with the Saints, I'm nervous about signing, and I was more homesickness. If I'm being honest, I was just being kind of a about it and had homesickness. I had my engagement ring in my backpack. I knew I was going to propose to my wife at some point that year, and busing was fun.
You just carried around in your backpack the whole freaking year?
Yeah,
this is a good time. Yeah.
Hey. And I remember calling my wife and just being like, I don't know if I want to sign. They had the contract, and I was like, oh, I'm still sitting on it. I hit up Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, and I'm like, hey, would love to come play for you, trying to get Green Bay. And again, I was just in a new environment. I didn't really know anybody. I was just being a about it. I was being homesick because I remember calling you. I was on the phone with Charles, and Charles was like, hey, like, we'll be here. Like, don't worry about coming back and forth and stuff like that. Like, we'll make everything work. We'll be here, yada, yada, yada. So fast forward to I get moved up to the first team on base as a Mike. I go into the fourth preseason game. They're like, hey, we're just going to play you the first quarter, knock some more rust off, and get you ready for week one. So I'm fired up. And, bro, I play that first quarter and catch just a bullshit ass roll. I get rolled up on. Hey, by the way, a hell of a play. It was a wide I formation, wide zone, wide lead. I run through the left tackle. I run through the left tackle, hit the fullback, and make the tackle a tackle for loss. But the left tackle I run through ends up falling on top of me, and I catch a bullshit ass ankle sprain. I think I played 3 series, 5 tackles for your boy, but was pissed because I was going to be a New Orleans Saint. Get brought up the next day. We kind of go through the MRI. My shit is hurting. Like, it was one of those things where you just know if you just had a few weeks, like, you'd be good to go. But they, again, needed a backer for week 1 because they had a few guys injured. That was going to be until like week 3 until Alex Anzalone was healthy. See the MRI stuff. We go up to I go up to see Terry, who's the GM at the time, I believe. And he's just like, bro, this truly is nothing that you did. Like, we were fired up. We just need a backer. They end up trading for Kiko Alonso before that week one hit, and got cut. That was the 10 days I spent on New Orleans. So I end up rehabbing, watching the first part of the Titan season where they start off 2-4, and every week an episode comes out. I'm just like, holy like this. Maybe we need to pause Bussin because it was brutal in the streets.
Yeah, I was getting murdered because I was suspended for the first 4
Taylor
games.
with the suspension was going on. Taylor and I are hanging out.
Yeah. We're like hanging out. We're watching the games on Sunday together with Matt Neely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then I go back. We play the Bills. First game, I don't think there was no touchdowns. It was all field goals. We lose. And the first play of the game, I like get a holding call. People are like, this guy.
A false start in like a third down situation.
Yeah, just bad. Getting an argument with some backup, Shaq Lawson on the Bills, and the Bills Mafia comes after me. They're murdering Bussin.
Yeah.
So, and then we go play the Broncos. That's when Marcus Mariota gets benched, and then Tannehill has to come in, and we just get destroyed by them. We're 2-4.
And me being on the couch, like, rehabbing my ankle and getting ready to whoever's going to call me. It was eventually the Oakland Raiders, but we're doing tailgates. We're towing the bus to the stadium for Titans games.
I'm driving by, honking my horn and waving to the boys as I'm going into the stadium.
Yeah, and we have like a crowd there that's like, we're tailgating together. We're tailgating around the bus, Bussin with the boys. We're trying to grow the brand and stuff like that, and they end up like having a bad start.
Yeah, bad start. They hate us. They're like, this guy, all he cares about is podcasting. Truly what we talked about in the beginning. Just
it's
worried
happening.
that people, all my biggest fears were happening.
Shut up and dribble, shut up and block type of thing. But
then what happened?
We're in this bubble of it all, and I'm sitting at home when Taylor is finally playing, and it was like a tight game with the Chargers. You guys won that one.
We beat the Chargers.
But it's like, you're just holding on for dear life because your anxiety's up too. That's the most recent roster and locker room and team meeting scenario that I knew. So I know the height of the anxiety that's happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm having it at home. And fortunately, the Oakland Raiders call, hey, we want to fly Will and work them out, intent to sign. And got to talk myself into that because I started enjoying the nice life of not playing on Sundays, knowing that they lost, but I'm not in the team meeting the next day, so I can kind of go on with my day to day. And so I go out to Oakland, and then you realize, like, you're just in such a bubble. Like, hey, people out here are talking about Bussin, and I signed with Oakland. Max Crosby brings up Bussin, and have a good year. It was kind of one of those things like, hey, this is probably my last year. I'm just going to enjoy this, have fun. Before practice, I'm basically just rolling out and doing, like, my own little tempo warm-up, not like being the serious, structured, this is what I have to do every day. I'm like just rolling out to get ready for practice. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, there's a situation that goes down in the linebacker room to where the coach, he's like, hey, we brought you in. John Gruden, the head coach at the time, Jay Gruden is who I played for in Washington. They're like, hey, we know, like, do you feel comfortable running the green dot and doing all the making the calls and stuff? I was like, oh yeah, I can rock that. I end up getting to start 3 games, have a little badass 3-game stint, and buy myself a couple more years because I'm thinking I'm just gonna play teams. It's gonna be it. Let's grow Bussin. Let's do what we can, and we'll go into the off season. Got 8 years or whatever that was at the time, 7 years. Good career.
Will and I would have like weekly check-ins, like every couple of days, FaceTime before bed. Hey, how you doing? How's practice?
You making any friends?
Yeah, making friends out there.
I'm giving the boys hats to guys. Like, guys love it out here.
And Max Crosby, who at this time, Max is a rookie. Now he's like essentially the face of the Las Vegas Raiders now, like an absolute stud. Should win Defensive Player of the Year this year. He goes up to Will and he's like, yo, I love your show. I love watching Bussin With The Boys. And so Will's like kind of fine as Richie Incognito.
Yeah, I sit in the first defensive meeting and he's like, yo, this dude's a celebrity. You guys have no clue. And I'm like chuckling.
So uncomfortable?
Like, yeah, so uncomfortable. He's like, yo, Bussin With The Boys, I watch you guys shit every week. I was just in bed last night.
Yeah, we're still in the Reddit this
Schaub episode. Yeah. And I'm thinking, that is cool that your peers are like seeing it and noticing it.
And the cool part is that this season is we play each other. We fly in. It's like the
Bussin Bowl.
Yeah, the fourth to last game of the year, or the third to last game. It was like second to last game in Oakland Raider Stadium.
Yeah.
And so Will and I go from having these FaceTime calls every week that all of a sudden Raiders are playing Titans. Ain't no FaceTime calls. Nothing's happening. No one's really talking. And we go out, we get there, and everyone's got their routine. But you usually go out before, kind of get warmed up, kind of do your own thing. How's the grass feel? You're kind of just getting in the zone. And we are both on the field at the same time. And the way the stadium works is like you walk in and out the same area, and then you kind of like take a right and you go into your locker rooms. Will and I are on the field at the same time. We don't say a word to each other. Like it is true.
But I never come across Taylor, but I'm literally chopping it up with everybody that I was seeing on the Titans, like wondering when the boy's going to come.
Oh, I saw him.
Yeah.
I saw Will, and I was like, no, dude, him. Yes.
Yeah.
But so Max, where he comes in the equation, Max is, a fan of Bussin and everything. Will tells Max he'll give him $500 for every sack he gets on me. And he's essentially,
brother,
he's hiring somebody
need this week.
Yeah, need it. And you guys were up what? You guys got a pick in the first quarter?
Yeah, but we were tied at half, and then you guys took off.
We went off
play
on
action.
them
AJ
after.
Brown deep. Derek, they beat our ass.
It was cool too because after the game, obviously it's all over. Will and I got to block Will twice that game. Or once?
I know that one time.
we ran a gap scheme. We were in a gap scheme and. My goal is like essentially get the linebacker, and if he goes over the top, you just wheel him out, and there should be a hole there. Will's job is whatever his job is.
Getting over the top.
Yeah, get it. So Will goes over the top, and I just wheel him out. And I go 1-0, and he's like, "F you, bitch," and we just like kind of like run off. Yeah. Then after the game, it was cool because Will spent 1 year on the Titans. After the game, I think 25 of the 53 guys came with their jerseys, signed them. Like we all had like big photos.
Dude, that's truly one of the coolest moments of my
career. It was
career.
awesome. Like we had a big, huge hug. Like we lined up all the jerseys for Will, and it was awesome. But then Will has to go in the locker room after we beat him like 40-21 or something like that.
Yeah,
like, we beat the brakes off
of him. It's like 37-17.
And Will is the last guy in the locker room after getting your ass beat, holding all these jerseys like a dumbass.
Yeah, bro. It was probably 10 jerseys, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was more. I think we were in the teens.
There was a lot. We can send you the photo. I don't know.
It was really cool.
If you put up references and stuff, but I can send the photo. But I have all of these jerseys, holding them, right? And that's when I gave you mine. Oh wait, no, I took it in so we could write on it. But I have all these jerseys, and the guy's like, "Hey, we got to get up to the locker room. Like they're waiting on you." Oof. Go up to the locker room. You go upstairs, then you enter in the double doors. I go up the stairs. The double doors are open, and once I get to the top step, the entire team is huddled up, and everybody's just looking. Everybody's just looking back at me.
The worst,
because I am truly the last guy in the doors. And John just looks at me. Coach Gruden, he just looks at me, and then he just gets to whatever his speech is. But I felt pretty shitty in that moment. Then the next week, they're busting my balls. Rich Bisaccia, who I love and is near and dear to my heart, he's just like, this week, Comp, you're going to be in this situation. I hope it was worth getting all those jerseys. You and your buddies out there. We're trying to win a football game this week. How about we lock in type of mentality? I'm sitting there like tight, like God damn it. But yeah, man. And those 3 games that I had where I got to play linebacker. Yeah. The next year, I go about it the same approach. Nothing in the offseason. Taylor and I focus on Bussin. Yeah, because the ACL hadn't happened at that point.
No, this is 20.
This is when we get reunited.
Yeah.
Taylor's going about his business.
Yes.
Taylor's going about his business. We're doing the pod. We signed with
2020.
Barstool. Yeah, we signed with Barstool, and that's when COVID and everything happened. Yeah, that's right. That's when you're zooming on, and we're like navigating through that and everything.
Hold on. Hey, COVID, we can agree it was a tough time in the world.
Yeah.
We had so much fun.
Yeah. We were up
we would be
late.
We would play Risk on Xbox. It'd be me, Will's buddy Brad LeBrot, Dennis Kelly, and Corey Levin, and we would play Risk, like the board game Risk, online, and just be like, I'd be in California
about
training
4 in the morning
till like 4. We get one game, it'd be like midnight, I'd be like, one more, boys, and it'd be 4 in the morning. I'd be like, man, forget it.
Bro,
Let's finally go to sleep. It was so much fun.
That was a wild year, but it was the same approach. Like, how can I finesse? Yeah. I have now proven that I can go in, pick up a playbook fast, and play well.
Yeah.
And having the green dot and everything else. So Raiders offered me, but again, they only offered me minimum. They had signed 2 linebackers for good money that offseason. They were talking about wanting to bring me back and how excited they were, and the defense played better. And I'm thinking like, man, maybe I'll get a little bit in free agency. And so COVID happens, the market goes down for a lot of guys, and I eventually get offered a minimum deal with the Raiders, and I'm kind of like, listen, guys, I don't need to come out there. There's no signing bonus. They're like, what will it take? And it's like, well, something fair. Like, a guy I beat out last year that you put me in over was making $2.5 million, and you took him out and put me in. And he just signed for $2 million with the Panthers. He just signed that contract. And it's like, all right, we'll talk to John. And I go through this whole spiel, and the defensive coordinator's like, can you tell this to Coach Gruden? Coach Gruden calls me. He's like, Will Compton, you're harder to sign than Keyshawn Johnson, man. And, last I was like, I bet you offered him more than minimum with a Subway gift card as a signing bonus. Yeah. And he laughs. And we never get it figured out because they're the only team in the market for me. So they don't have to offer me money. Yeah. Unless there's somebody competing, there's no need to offer any money. Yep. That's the business. And so I'm hanging out, I'm stringing it out, go up until training camp. We're 10 days out of week 1 of the NFL season. And the fucking Titans call. And they're like, hey, we want to work you out. I'll talk to Vraves, like, hey, we have the same agent. So he's like, I'm not just bringing him in to be a camp body or anything. Like, we'll have him on for the season. And so I call Taylor, and I'm like, bro, guess what? God. And he's like, what'd you say? You're like, don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, bro, guess. And he's like, are you signing with the fucking Titans? And I was like, I'm coming in for a workout tomorrow morning. And we're just getting hype on the phone. He just got out of practice.
Yeah.
And we had an off day that day too.
Yeah.
Like, after the next day. So I was going to pick up food for the fam, headed over, and I get that call. I was like, no way.
Reunited.
We had a
going.
squad. We had a squad too. So I was like, we could have won it.
We went 11-5 and lost to the Ravens in the fucking first round.
But that was the year prior to that, we were in the AFC Championship, and we returned everyone.
Yeah.
It was like,
Titans were nice.
In our head, we're like, yo, we could win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
And then Willie gets a call to be on the week 1 roster. We're like,
bro,
this is going to be the best year of our lives.
At the workout, the equipment staff, the trainers, like, we're all excited that I'm out there, like, doing the workout, and I only had to do a couple drills, and Brave's like, hey, you're good to go. And then I get signed, dude, and it's all time, 10 days before week 1. So again, got to finesse it. The next day there was like that was when all the was going down with protesting and diversity training, and like there's a whole deal that happened to where
like BLM was going hard, and guys on our team were like, we should march down to City Hall and we should demand. One dude was like, we got to ask them why they keep killing us. And me, I'm kind of sitting there.
We're in this team meeting where everybody's open and talking about it. And this is my first day back, and I'm just sitting here like, everybody's protesting around the league like we're not practicing today. People are going to go out in the community and do stuff. So I'm sitting there 10 days out. My first day back is an off day. And then the day after that was supposed to be like a light off day or something. And I'm just thinking like, yo, this is gravy, bro. But everybody's like being loud and arguing. And I'm just thinking like, yo, this is crazy to be back with the boys.
Yeah.
And then get on the week 1 roster and get
started
to play
out,
for the Titans.
We started 5-0. Went 5-0.
Spooktober was riding high.
Yes, we went to the Broncos first game. No fans in the stands at all. It was the quietest game ever.
Crazy.
Will, dude, this is a crazy story. So Will like obviously signs 10 days before the season, and so he goes up to Rashawn Evans and who else? Jayon Brown, and he's like, boys, if you could just not get hurt this game, I don't have the lung capacity. Like playing in Denver, you could be in great shape. The minute you get to Denver, it all goes out the window.
And my training wasn't like the year before. Because I remember with Taylor, they were asked like, hey, what's the plan? Like, are you thinking about being done? Like, bro, he's like being a boy. He's like, let me know. Hey, if you're gonna retire, like, You've done awesome. He probably doesn't know whatever games I'm playing with in my head. He's probably thinking, maybe I don't want to fully commit to it. And the minute the Raiders offered, Taylor like come up, shook my hand. He's like, you wanted to be offered by somebody, and now you can say no and leave on your own terms. Remember that in Boost.
Yes.
And so my training, like I was training, but I wasn't like up to where I was the year before.
Sure.
And we go into Denver. I go up to Rashawn Jr. I'm like, hey, motherfuckers, nobody tap out this game. Because, I don't have the lung capacity to be out there. First series, Rashawn Evans punches a tight end in the face and gets ejected from the game. I see it when it happens. Before a flag gets thrown, I see him punch this dude in the face. I'm thinking, oh, God. I'm thinking, oh, I'm like basically reaching around for my wallet, trying to find my helmet. And I'm like, I'm going to have to go fucking play this game. I just got here.
And it was...
Oh, it was a bloodbath, bro.
I don't know how it was on defense. We had like 2 16-play drives on offense where there's no talking anymore. Tannehill gets the call out, and we're like, boys, hope everybody knows what they're doing. We're not saying a word. Yeah. It was so hard to breathe. We were dying. We won on a field goal. We missed 4 field goals.
I think, we won the game, though.
Yeah, we won. Yeah, we started 5-0.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
It was
Nobody
wild,
ever talks about that. Like, even on broadcast, they don't tap into like some of those. Like I'd never even think about how playing in Denver would be more challenging.
Oh, the worst part about Denver too is when you play there with their fans in the fourth quarter, they'll like do like this thing on the jumbotron where they're showing the visiting team using oxygen masks. So in your mind, you're like, I can't use the oxygen masks. I can't get exposed.
Yeah.
For everybody, so you're just like low key dying the whole time. Yes, your lungs hurt so bad after the game.
That was a brutal game.
Who we play the next game? Minnesota. No, we went home.
No, I forget who we played. But that was a fun year. I mean, we went 11-5, man, and we beat the Ravens in a comeback game. Came out in the second half. That was one of the games I got to play in at linebacker for the entire half, and we had an awesome comeback. Derek just always gets stronger in the fourth quarter in that second half. The O-line just bullying dudes, and the Titans had such an identity for those few years, and 11-5 was like the 2 seed, I believe, in the AFC.
Derek goes 2,000 yards.
Derek goes 2K.
Yeah,
Derek goes
but
2,000. We clinched the AFC South for the first time in several years or something like that.
Yes.
And we were riding high, man. It was awesome. And we lost that first round of the playoffs. We shouldn't have, to the Ravens at home when we beat them at their spot.
I know.
You talked about,
it was a fun time.
You talked about signing with Barstool. So, you created the show. You created Bussin With The Boys. You're learning as you're going around the league how even your peers are paying attention to it and listening to you. And I agree. I don't know of a better compliment when somebody who's in your industry says, I listen to your show. How did you get approached by Dave or anybody at Barstool, or did you take the idea to them? Because that was kind of what put you guys over, I think.
So when we started the pod, I remember when I'm talking Taylor through this and the importance of owning your IP, and we're going to be an athlete-owned podcast. Like that's not out there. That's not really out there yet. I think JJ Redick, he had to rebrand from The Ringer, JJ Redick's podcast, to The Old Man and the Three because they wouldn't give him his IP.
Yeah.
And so at first it's like, oh, we're not going to go with anybody because we're just going to own it. Nothing's going to happen. Then you learn the partnerships that, hey, you can own your IP. But to answer your question, when Vrabel cutting his off was going viral, when Jalen Ramsey, that was hitting the scene and going viral, they were fairly like within a month. Barstool's account DM Bussins and said, would you guys be interested in a conversation? And our guy who was running social media at the time, Matt Neely, RIP, he had passed away that year. And he's fired up because he's a stoolie. He's a Barstool guy. He's like, hey, Erica, the CEO, and they want to get on the phone with you. I remember being excited about it. Then it was like the stuff you say, like, no, we're not going to sign with nobody, yada, yada, yada. You're just kind of excited about they want to talk to you on the phone. We jump on the phone, and I didn't realize Erica was Erica, a female. I'm like, oh, what's up, Eric? And it's like, Gaz was on the phone, too. There's a few of them. He's like, oh, it's Erica. I was like, oh, Erica, my fault. They're like, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, just watching my fish tank on my TV screen right now, like just keeping it light. And they talk about like, hey, would you guys be interested in a partnership? It's like, yeah, I don't think anything's off the table. Like, what do you like about us, or what do you see in us that wants us to get on the phone? And like, man, we don't want to change anything that you guys are doing. We just want to pour gasoline on it. If you want to stay in Nashville, if you want to, however you book guests, like, We essentially want to give you a bigger platform, and we just want to pour gasoline on your fire because we think what you guys have is special. We think your guys' chemistry, like it's the look, the feel, and everything is we love it. And so as we're getting, it's like, okay, then we try and figure out how serious they are by shooting them an email like, hey, if you guys are serious about this, we'd love for you guys to fly to Nashville if you can, and we can talk in person. So they immediately, within 5 minutes of that email, they respond with dates that they'll fly. Yeah. Erica, the CEO, and Gaz will fly to Nashville. So it's like, okay, they are into us. And we picked the date to where Taylor, on one of Taylor's off days, in training camp. And they fly in. We sit down at a True Foods to chop it up. We don't really talk negotiating. We don't really talk terms or nothing like that. We just kind of get to know each other, which was interesting because when I told you that I said no to the Jets because we had Sean Johnson to film the next day. That day that I said no to the Jets, the Saints called that third time. And I didn't answer my agent until we did the Sean Johnson episode. I was like, sorry, I was working out. Like they want to get you on the first flight out. That day so happened to be the day we met Barstool. I wanted to meet with Barstool. So I was like, if we could do it early the next morning, I'll go to the Saints. And so all that stuff just, it's like the stars aligned for that conversation to happen. And we sit down and we just talk shop. And we kind of told them that here's our plan. We have probably 15 episodes in the bank. Like we had to have some bye weeks, what we refer to them as. Yeah. But we kind of want to run its course throughout the season. We really want to focus on ball. Like even though I was about to go to New Orleans, so it's like, I want to focus on the season. I was running the intros just in, like we'd be in the my hotel room that they put me in. I would just be in the closet with that little, I forget what it's called, but that like microphone basically. Yeah, the recorder. I'd just be in there like doing the ads and doing the intro. Like, you guys will enjoy this episode. Make sure you subscribe, rate 5 stars, all that. Yeah. And, we're like, we'll just focus on this year, and then maybe we can circle back toward the end of the year. We circled back toward the end of the year, started talking terms, and then we finalized the deal at the Super Bowl that next year in February of 2020. February of 2020. So that is how that deal came about. Like there were other shoppers, but it was kind of like smaller media crews that were out in LA, that nothing like a national, like a big one, like a Barstool or like a Bleacher Report, ESPN, nothing like that. Barstool was really, on to us for that entire year. So that's how it worked out with them.
Yeah, and so I think that was a great move by you guys because it kind of legitimized what you were doing a little bit, and they did pour some gas on that fire. A couple quick questions about that. So gambling, sports books. Yep. Gambling, sports books opened up this year in North Carolina, so we've been in it. And we've got our own gambling podcast around NASCAR and so forth called Dirty Modo. And
ooh, nice.
It's pretty fun, but gambling on racing, it's all a new idea. Gambling as far as legal gambling in North Carolina is also a new idea. So it's a good space for us to sort of see where we can grow. But that's Barstool in a nutshell, right? And they've been involved in sports books for many years. And so how interesting is that for you guys, having been players, right? Like I couldn't even be on DraftKings when I was driving race cars because, you're as an athlete, you're not even allowed to have an account. Mm-hmm. But so having come from, I guess, being on one side of it now, switching over, you're interviewing players, right? So you're talking to players as a journalist for the most part. I mean, it's weird for all of us, I think, to call ourselves journalists, having no fucking background other than doing our podcast. But we are, in a media person, right? And so getting into the sports book, and I see you guys out there promoting that part of it. But I mean, I see you. I don't know about you, Taylor, but I see him all. Not recently for some weird reason, but
no football season.
Yeah, right. So during like college football, man, you're like got your parlays you're pushing out there, and you're taking losses and
mostly losses.
Listen,
is that funny, JP?
But I don't have to do that. See, like I have my podcast. Those guys, will give their advice. I'm not giving advice. I'm not sitting there going, dude, I would bet on this guy, or I'd bet on this guy, or this is how I would play this weekend. You are, right? And so that is, you got to know, man. Just like, that's a very dicey space, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you feel like how's that experience been? I guess I'm asking because it may be a space I'm in one day.
So it sounds like we need to talk Dale into doing the space.
Yeah.
Everybody at Dirty Mo Media, we need Dale to talk about gambling, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Stephen
I'm
A.
apprehensive, man, because I don't know.
We sat down with Stephen A. Smith, and he was talking about having relationships with players while also being objectively evaluating them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you are just open and honest about how you feel about their production, then there's nothing to be there's nothing they can be upset about, because you're objectively saying this guy raced well or he did not race well. This is what he did wrong in my opinion. This is what he did right in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you keep that way and don't keep it personal at all, then if they're upset about anything, that's their own ego getting in the way. You just lock in a little Lucy.
Yeah.
Nice
but
man.
Are you a nicotine guy?
No. I used to smoke, but
Lucy's?
I quit a long time ago.
Lucy?
No, I'm good.
Those things right there?
Is that your?
Vanilla latte in your mouth, brother.
Because you had to quit dipping, or
No,
trying
I
to quit
actually
dipping?
started with.
What the?
We joke about. I saw one Huberman video, and Taylor he had been trying to get me on it. He sends me Huberman stuff like the science behind nicotine and being beneficial for brain performance. And that's all I needed to see was a TikTok clip, and now I'm into it a little bit.
Yeah, all right.
But the gambling.
Yeah. Sorry.
We do 2 gambling shows during the fall. We do
Yeah.
Bet the Bus, which is a college gambling
Yep.
show, and then Slips and Picks 500, which that title will probably change for those of you wondering who watch the show, because it just conflicts with the actual S&P 500.
Yeah.
And that's an NFL gambling show, and it is tough when you start saying things about people, and maybe a San Francisco quarterback you say you've heard they're not very good, and then they murder you for it because you know these guys.
Yeah.
I had a thing where I said Brock Purdy's not the man. I was told that. And sure enough, he starts going off, and people are at my neck about it. Christian McCaffrey's texting me. George Kittle's texting me, telling me, hey, you're an idiot for saying that.
Yeah.
And so that does make it a little difficult sometimes.
What about making a parlay, right? Just something simple as this. Okay, I know this is silly, but what about making a parlay and putting it out there like this is my belief? Do you build your parlay?
Yeah, man.
And you're going to be like, hey, man, I believe this will happen?
Yes.
And then when it falls apart and it blows up in your face, like what's been your experience with that?
I mean, yeah, you never want to lose money, but people on the internet audience, like whatever it is, like failure is attractive. So when you lose your bet and then you have fun with losing your bet, there's almost a humanizing factor of relating to people, because everybody, we're gambling. You're probably going to lose. Chances are you're probably going to lose. Yeah. But we have enough experience where we think we can put some of these things together. Sometimes they do hit. The playoff Willie parlays,
They do, but they're usually locks.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like part of the game of the business of like social media and stuff too. Like, you want to put your neck out there. It's a very popular thing that everybody does. So I like to put whatever my bets are that's going to be out there and ride those bets and talk about them heavy. Yeah. Kind of lip off or mouth the people who are against it. Yeah. And then when I lose, it's like, having fun with the losses, because ultimately you're trying to engage and relate with the fans and everything else. So the building parlays, I feel like, is easier than being like, we have our Bet the Boys parlay where it's like Kittle's going to have over 4.5 and 4.5 receptions, and Christian McCaffrey's going to have an anytime touchdown, and Derrick Henry's going to go off. And so I just have fun with it. Yeah. Like, and even if I'm like saying something like, if George doesn't get 4.5, best believe he'll have a text post game like, hey brother, great game out there. I'm glad you guys won. I kind of needed you to have 5 catches. I'm not going to tell you why, but maybe let's get Shanahan's ear a little bit for next game. And so you just kind of like, you're just playing the relationship side of it all and having fun with it.
That is that's also something that I wanted. It's not really a question, but Will, your social media is like, you have built a persona on your X account, on your Twitter account. Like, there's this, if you tweet, people have like an expectation of what's coming.
There's a standard.
There's no fucking normal tweets with this guy.
No,
he's not. Hey, this I did this yesterday. That was fun. There's none of that.
No.
I read yours, and you're basically just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But this guy,
absolutely.
This guy is every tweet is like cutting edge.
There was a point when Will, I think, got over 100,000 followers, and we were sitting there and we were talking about social media, and Will goes,
this was around like the same time, I think.
And Will goes, I think I finally found my thing.
Yeah.
I think I finally found my lane that I really enjoyed. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
So that's just comes easy to you?
I don't know.
Taking people into the closet and putting people in the trash can, and
I like
messing with people that are, messing to all the haters online. You seem to have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, because everybody goes through, like Taylor talks about Taylor talks about like typing your name in, and there are times playing on the Redskins, like the fan base, as you know, can be pretty vicious. But I don't know, once I got into the back end of my career, and it didn't bother me as much because I kind of knew the direction I was kind of going with everything. People like clapbacks. People like you having fun. You can tell like when you're resistant, actually, responding personally. Like you just see that people are like, hey, there's really no need to like why are you even bothering with this? And they're right. It's almost like why are you getting so mustered up?
But if you turn it into a joke.
But yeah, if you have some fun with it and turn it into a joke, and then I kind of just grew to realize, like, again, X is my favorite app. Twitter turning into X has always been kind of my favorite app. I love the comments. I love how witty people are and creative. I love the memes. I love video responses to things. And if say I have something that I have typed up and I'm like, oh, okay, this could be better in a video. How can I do that? Because as you know, like it's weird, like putting a screen on your face and being like, who am I actually talking to out there? But if I have fun with it, or if I figure out ways to have fun with it while still getting across the same message with whether it's enthusiasm or personality, to where people might not just read a few words and think like, okay, what does he mean by that? And then give their own spin on what I meant by that. Being in group chats, understanding the group chat humor, just busting balls with the boys. And it's like, I want to take that online. I want to take that online like it hadn't been done, but you see the way Dave Portnoy would have handled stuff with press conferences. And, you listen, like when Barstool or people that are experts in media are kind of giving advice, like the algorithms and the, people enjoy when your face is in front and you are the one talking. Trying to like get over that hump and just, I don't know, it's like bring it all together. And I just love some storytelling aspect. I love like some dry humor. I enjoy it, man. I love just finding creative things to have fun with. I love seeing what everybody talks about and then being like, okay, how can I involve myself with this? The all white versus all black team.
I know. Sometimes there's like you have a real unique knack for skirting into some spaces that could be potentially dangerous, canceling spaces, right? You know what I'm saying? But people know you, and a lot of people in your own industry and people you've played against and played with know you and know your sense of humor, right? And so, and you're and there's some great self-deprecation in there as well, which I appreciate. And so, but I always kind of wondered like how there's I think for me, I look at social media as a dangerous place that I got to be careful with, right? I can't go in there and just entirely be myself, right? Because will everybody be okay with that? And so I think a lot of people, especially mostly athletes, tend to approach it the same way and approach it with some precaution. Whereas you're like, man, this is who I am. I don't. And
just a racist guy from Missouri, man. Just tweet now.
No, I think it's like self-deprecation. That's kind of important with it. It's like me, like the locker rooms I've been in, my teammates know me, so there's a sense of like, okay, I know this could come off a certain way, but I know who I am and I know why I'm being about this. And then you kind of just see what happens. Like when I did the all white versus black thing, I didn't know. I was like, here could be a time where I find the line for real.
Right.
But you have those people like, laugh with you, and you realize that, with all the things that go on in our country, like it's one side, it's the other. Hey, what Harrison Butker said last week about homemakers and not being career women, like everybody takes it and runs. Like you're either that's insane or it's like, oh, there's some belief to it. And then all those people get mad at each other over it. And it's like, we all talk about it. There's so many more people that are in the middle. And I think if you just embrace whatever's kind of happening, like whether it's both sides of the conversation, maybe you have a stance on one, but you're kind of handling it with whether it's self-deprecation or humor and fun. Like I just feel like that humanizes you with people, and people relate more to that because the majority of people who's watching your stuff isn't even engaging with you. Like they think like, okay, if I like this, maybe somebody will see it. Like they're not, the ones who enjoy you aren't going out of their way to drop in the comments and say something positive. It's usually the negative ones. But I'll get text on the side. It's like if I say something about maybe somebody or make fun of somebody at ESPN, like I'll get people on the side who are in that universe that like think it's hilarious and love it, whatnot, or the other that kind of like, stamps that approval. But it's like I don't know. I'm like feeling my way through some things because there are times where I'm like, okay, this could be a little, this could get a little dicey. But if it gets dicey, it's another opportunity to create or make another video or give more context to yourself in a fun way. That's like, okay, the boy's getting killed right now. Maybe Nebraska loses. I'm just laying out in the middle of the street or something like that. Like a way to go even more extreme to let people know like you're being lighthearted about everything and your intentions
you're not
are
taking nothing too seriously.
Yes.
I think that's it's a unique quality that you have to be able to do that and do it without fear and with such, I don't know. It's a very rare personality trait that not a lot of people have, and I think it's serving you well now, but I think it'll continue to serve you well as your podcast and your brand gets bigger and bigger.
Thank you, Dale.
But I appreciate it, man.
It's how we got connected. Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a fan of Washington.
No, but man, I mean, I would.
Dude, our friendship is the
if
craziest.
You hadn't reached out,
is the craziest story. I'll just never forget when I realized I was going back and forth with D'Angelo Hall and Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant is a fan of Washington. Huge. And I was kind of being that, being myself. Like I was starting. I took over the starting job. We were having fun. We went on the run and we won the East, went to the playoffs. We were just on a run, and it was like one of those things like I just thought it was so cool that I was playing with D'Angelo Hall, who I had watched.
Dude.
And these guys that are like, I'm the signal caller, and you see Kevin Durant, I'm like, hey, D Hall. They were like going back and forth on Twitter. I was like, hey, D Hall, introduce your boy, but don't, seem cool about it. Like, don't make me seem desperate. Like while he's tagged in it. So he's like, Comp, I know you, man. And I'm just, I'm just like lighting up, being like, this is so sick. And then an article comes out the next day, and they talk about a couple of people that follow me, and you're one of them. And I'm thinking, Dale Jr. follows me. I go to your page, see that you're following me. I screenshot it. I send it to my strength coach, who Taylor referred to earlier, because he's a massive Dale Jr. fan. I'm like, bro, check this out. And we went back and forth in DMs, and then the next OTAs, you're like, hey, good luck in OTAs. I'm just thinking, this is crazy. Because I think everybody knows it. Like, you're one of the most, like, you don't know that you're Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Which is the coolest kind of
Yeah, it's so cool. Then you
there's a flock of people outside just waiting to meet you.
Yeah.
There's literally, we walked up.
We're taking their time.
Yeah. Yeah, we really are.
They've been out there for hours.
I have no idea how long we've been here, but these people are like, when's he coming out?
Yeah, man. And it's just sick, dude. Like you had messaged yesterday, and JP was sitting by my phone. He was like, what a crazy thing to see. Just Dale Jr.'s texting you. And it's cool, man. I appreciate you. And it's fascinating that we are now on your podcast. You took time out because we did the Zoom when you're like, hey, whenever you want to do it, man, just let me know and I'll find a day and I'll come out to you guys. And that was massive by you and super
Well, I also got to go drink in Nashville that night. So that was kind of a fun thing for me either way.
I mean, you and Tony.
Man, we left the bus. It was on.
Dude, but that was awesome of you, bro. And that really helped our podcast. Like, you're one of the most viewed episodes on Bussin With The Boys. Like Taylor said, like rough paint job earlier, and I'm thinking like, oh, hey, that was a Dale Jr. 8 bus. Dale Jr. 8 paint job.
Yeah, it was just patinaed out.
It's good.
But it's like you gotta have Dale Jr. on this bus.
It was such a full thing when you came on.
Signed the
8. And it's just like, this is nuts.
Yes.
What was even crazier is that Chargers video just recently where they had the little bus on the side on their.
Yes, bro.
I'm like six connections or whatever that shit with Kevin Bacon. It's like all the right to this. Bus. This dude made this bus one day in his backyard, and he's like, I'm going to the races, man. And now that bus is in this Chargers video.
Yeah.
And how it got there is the craziest story.
Crazy, man.
So wild. It's insane. Yeah, your guys' relationship, to me, whenever Will talks about how you guys met and stuff like that, I'm like, that's just cool.
And you had like a farewell thing, I think, that year, and you're like, he had DM'd me, he was like, hey, they told me to give a list of players I want to come. Like, you're on the list, so make sure you let them know that you're on the list.
Yeah.
And it was in training camp, so we got to miss a day of practice.
Oh.
It was me, Kirk, Morgan Moses, and Ryan Kerrigan. We got to go to the track, and I got to ride with them.
Richmond.
I'm doing like Snapchat with like the puppy dog tongue out, like selfies with them. And we're just having a great time. And I'm just thinking like, yo, he's just driving fast. I'm fucking sitting in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And we're just boys.
Yeah.
But, dude,
so
sick.
D Hall was a cool dude. You guys are fans of things in your lives, and I was a massive fan of Washington, still am, always will be. And anytime I have interaction with players, man, I mean, I don't care if it's from the 80s or whatever, right? I mean, it's just, they're heroes of mine, right? They're like special. And so I was walking into, I only got to go to like one game a year, and I was walking down to the sidelines, and the DBs were all huddled together just right before the exit of the tunnel. And they're huddled, man. They're freaking hyping each other up, and freaking it's on. And D Hall seen me out of the corner of his eye, and he goes, "Junior." And I was like, holy shit, how cool is this? Like, I was just coming to the game. I was happy to be there. It was like the greatest day of the year, right?
Yeah.
And for any of the players, right, to acknowledge you, man. It was
D Hall.
so badass, and he was
insane.
Man. Yeah.
What a player he was.
Yeah.
But dude, yeah, it's
that was always
crazy,
fun. So
man.
I appreciated you and all any of the other players that would ever engage, man, because that was just kind of because y'all were in this other world, right?
Right.
And I grew up as since '81, I've been a fan, so it's like the coolest thing in the world to have any interaction with them, right? And you got, you both got to know that y'all did that for all kinds of fans all through your careers, man. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed talking to you guys. I know you came a long way to spend some time with me today, so I appreciate that. I've been a big fan of what y'all have done with Bussin, and I wish y'all all the success. I know you're already successful in a sense, but I know in y'all's heads y'all got a bigger vision, and there's a lot of greater things that y'all want to accomplish. And now I think since Taylor, you're able to put more focus on it, you guys will be able to achieve everything you want. So pretty awesome to be able to share today with you, talk about your careers and say hello. So thank you very much.
We appreciate it, man.
Subscribe to Bussin out there.
Yeah, and thank you for having us out here. Like this establishment you have.
Thanks, yeah.
You inviting us out, unreal.
Who would have thought, bro?
I know.
Couple best friends, start a podcast on a Dale Jr. bus, and now we're out at 30 Mil Media.
That is not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the spots we grew up. I know in small town Missouri, it's NASCAR and WWE, WWF going to WWE. So it's like it's surreal, man.
It is. It's a wild experience. It's crazy how when we first started the podcast, we had no idea what would happen, and even 2 years ago, we're like, we never thought it'd be this big. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger every single year.
I know.
It's crazy.
Honestly, man, y'all have inspired me in a lot of ways, and how I podcast, and y'all will create opportunities for other podcasters, other athletes that want a podcast. You guys are creating a blueprint, a pathway. You don't even realize, what you're doing, and how you're inspiring and motivating other people. So just keep kicking ass, man. I know you will.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
All right. Bussin with the Boys on the Dale Jr. Download. All right, so coming out of a long 2.5-hour interview with Bussin with the Boys podcast hosts Taylor and Will, that was a fun conversation. I'm gonna bring Andrew in, as Andrew was in the booth producing, and you came out, Andrew, and you said that was the longest show that we've had in 2 years.
Yeah, Steve Mill was about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I'm betting that this is going to be, I mean, we're at the 2:42 mark right now on my record time.
I really enjoyed it. I got to pee real bad, but I didn't want to cut anything out. We did sort of skip a bunch of their professional NFL careers. I knew we were going to have to when I looked at the clock and I saw how much time we'd taken to get through their college careers. And I don't know how interesting this might be to people, but I'm biased because I'm good friends with Will, and I am curious about all the things I wanted to ask them and got to talk to them about today. But give me your honest opinion. What's your honest take on it, Andrew?
My honest take, I had heard of Bussin with the Boys. I haven't really listened to a whole lot of their podcasts until I found out they were coming on the show, and they gained a new fan out of me for sure. And honestly, I don't really follow football. I don't watch it a whole lot, but hearing all the combine stuff and, the train of them going from one team to another, I thought all that was really fascinating.
100%. So I really enjoyed learning about them a little bit more and just celebrating them. Just like we bring in people and set them at this table, and I often to think about the frame of mind that I want to get into for the show is it helps me when I think that, man, I really want to celebrate this person. I want to put a spotlight on them. And I'm very appreciative of Will and the friend that he's become, and getting to know Taylor through Will, and watching them build the podcast basically kind of linear or parallel with what I've been doing as a podcast host has been kind of fun, because I've learned a lot, and they're ambitious, and they push the envelope a little bit, and they're going to continue to have ambitious plans and big visions for their show. And it's a bit motivating for me to push myself in this space and not get complacent or satisfied. And so, you know, they help motivate me on the podcast side. So it's fun to kind of collaborate or talk a little bit about that. And so just thankful they came. I can't believe they came all this way to do the show. They're going to jump on a plane and go home, and Stefan's taking them for a quick 10-cent tour out there on the shop floor, so they get to see that. But man, cool time, great guys. I love when we have people from other sports come in here, because we get to learn about what it's like behind the curtain, some of the challenges that they deal with that we would never even know exist. And so, you know, just I mean, of course, you know, if you really bared down and thought about it, you would realize that playing it in Denver would be tougher than playing anywhere else. But man, to hear them describe it, it's like, holy shit, he kind of didn't even want to go in the game because he wasn't ready to play. His body wasn't in football shape, right? And they talk about that. People will come back from injury, and it's like, you know, not in football shape yet. What's that even mean? And so, pretty cool. Also, I was appreciative of how transparent they were talking about injuries and so forth. And then we didn't get into concussions. I had that on my notes. I really wanted to talk about that. It just kind of slipped my mind, and we didn't really ever get to it. I know that Taylor dealt with that at points in his career. I'm not sure about Will, but it's something I was just curious about. What we might have uncovered, or how that conversation might have been, but maybe for another day. Great time. Appreciative that they came. Sometimes we got to mix it up, jump off the NASCAR train, and do something a little different. And this was that week. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you, Ally, for bringing us 2 allies to the table today. This has been an awesome segment. The guest segment brought to you by Ally every single week. And here we are with another one, a great episode. Ally has always been a great supporter of the Dale Jr. Download and Dirty Mo Media, and no matter what you're saving for, whether it's race tickets, a new car, or even a brand new home, we're all better off with an Ally. Let's move on to the white flag. Let's see, dropping Sunday night. If you haven't listened to it yet, the teardown from Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. They talked about everything that they experienced during the North Wilkesboro All-Star Weekend, and they recorded that immediately after the race that night. Fresh thoughts about what went on at the racetrack in Wilkes County. Dropping Monday, actions detrimental with Denny Hamlin. A driver's point of view of what it was like to compete in the All-Star race and what the Wilkesboro racetrack was like. Door Bumper Clear also come out Monday, and those guys are, obviously going to be giving their opinions on everything going down, and there were some that I didn't agree with, particularly TJ thinking that, 800 laps of testing the tire at Wilkesboro for Goodyear had no bearing on Joey Logano's performance all of a sudden. I mean, how could you even say that?
Kelly Crandall was great on that show, too.
Kelly Crandall was great. Appreciate her coming in for the week. Yesterday, our Dirty Air show dropped, and that's always fun for me, one of my favorite shows that we do, and I hope you'll listen. And today, Speed Street with Connor Daly and Chase Holden. That is dropping, and Connor is in the throes of trying to get ready for the Indy 500, so there's tons of great content there around what's happening in Indy this week. And then Dirty Mo Doe drops Friday. Usually that drops Thursday, but this week it'll drop Friday with Steve Letarte and Tampa Tims as they talk about the upcoming Coke 600 in Charlotte. And they'll have the lines for that and some of the best bets to make. JRM Fan Day presented by Lionel is tomorrow. If you're in the area, come down here and see us at Junior Motorsports. Fan Day is going to start at 9 a.m. There'll be autograph sessions and live music, and then there'll be 3 live Dirty Mo media shows as well. At 10 a.m., the Dirty Mo Game Show, hosted by Andrew Curlin and Jordan Bianchi, will start. And then Door Bumper Clear's live bonus episode is at 11:15. And then there's a DJD Reloaded with Carla, Mike Davis, and TJ Majors at 1:45. So there's going to be a lot going on for quite a while throughout the day here at Junior Motorsports tomorrow. And then I'll be at Hendrick Motorsports as well on Friday for an hour, I think around lunch. I'm looking forward to that. I hope everybody is excited about this race weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. The race at Charlotte has been a good one the last several times we've been there at the Oval, and I think this weekend will be more of the same. So let's get it started. Hopefully we bring home a win for Junior Motorsports and get to go to victory lane. The Denny Hamlin Bracket Challenge is back again for year 2. Last year we had 20,000 fans show up. 32 NASCAR drivers will be going 5 races starting in June, going head-to-head each week until ultimately at Gateway, the final 2 will battle for the ultimate top prize of winning the second annual Denny Hamlin Bracket Challenge. Hopefully, more details will be coming out soon on Dirty Mo Media's social handles and dirtymomedia.com. Stay updated. Fill out a bracket. Have some fun with us. I'm going to do it. Me and at least 20,000 other people are going to do it. I know we'll have probably more turnout this year. So you'll get to understand, too, by doing it this year, what to anticipate in next year's NASCAR tournament, in-season tournament. So you'll not want to miss the Denny Hamlin Bracket Challenge.